Chapter 612. You call this a small accident? All the elites were speechless. Zhang Xiaoyao's move had stunned everyone. Some elites even thought that today's gathering would turn into a slaughterhouse. Elder Wang of the Business Alliance of 10,000 Races wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. For some reason, he vaguely felt that if Zhang Xiaoyao were to really go on a killing spree, there was a chance that he, the King of Saints, would not be able to hold him back. It was his intuition. But if word got out, everyone would be surprised. The difference between a sage and a sage king was huge. Everyone, don't look like that. Relax. I, the son of God, am not a demon. Zhang Xiaoyao smiled faintly. When the crowd heard this, they all cursed silently. You are indeed not a demon. You are the Grim Reaper, son of God of the Zhang family. This way please. There is an independent VIP room on the second floor. Elder Wang stepped forward and said pleasantly. Looking at Elder Wang's expression, all the elites sighed inwardly. If it were other elites who caused trouble in the Business Alliance of 10,000 Races, they would have been kicked out by this elder. If they killed someone, the situation would be even more serious. The Business Alliance of 10,000 Races might even punish them. But now, Zhang Xiaoyao was fine. Not only did the Business Alliance of 10,000 Races not dare to hold Zhang Xiaoyao responsible, but they also invited him to the VIP room on the second floor respectfully. What was power? This was power. Then, Zhang Xiaoyao and the others were also invited to the VIP room by Elder Wang. TSK. The VIP room is a place where even the rich can't go, Chen Duetzai, the young master of the Celestial Treasure Sect, sighed. The VIP room was only available to the esteemed guests of the Business Alliance of 10,000 Races. Tycoons like Chen Duetzai couldn't enjoy it even if they were rich. As for Hu Qingqing, she bit her lips tightly, her face full of unwillingness. If she had met Zhang Xiaoyao first, she might have been able to rope him in. But now, they had already formed a grudge. Hu Qingqing could only place all her hopes on Mo Jinyu. Thinking of the young Holy Spirit who was invincible among his peers, Hu Qingqing's emotions calmed down a little. On the other side, in the VIP room, there were a total of 18 young women who were ready to serve him. All of them had fair skin, beautiful features, and long legs. Some were as beautiful as fairies, some were as noble as empresses, and some were as alluring as enchantresses. Most importantly, they were the holy maidens of some forces or the royal princesses of some ancient dynasties. Although his strength wasn't on the level of a great genius, he still wasn't considered weak on the ancient road of the ultimate path. These outstanding saintesses and princesses were actually serving as maids and maids here. It could be seen that this VIP room was of a very high level. However, before Zhang Xiaoyao could say anything, Fairy Maiden Yuan said calmly, "Is it enough for me to serve Lord Son of God? You can leave now." Yes, hearing this. Then, they looked at Zhang Xiaoyao's handsome face again. Although the women present were reluctant to accept the outcome, they were still unable to accept it. But they could only leave. Zhang Xiaoyao's expression changed slightly. You're chasing them away just like that. I don't think Lord Son of God is interested in these common women, right? Fairy Maiden Yuan smiled sweetly. A charming smile appeared on her exquisite features. Indeed, but I don't need you to make the decision for me, Zhang Xiaoyao said calmly. I think it's enough for Lord Son of God to have me serve you. Fairy Maiden Yuan showed a pitiful expression. Don't forget that we're just partners, Zhang Xiaoyao said. Fairy Maiden Yuan nodded slightly. A hint of sadness flashed in her eyes. As expected, no matter what the situation was she always a target to be used? After that, the trade fair officially began. It had to be said that all the sky prides of the 9 Emperor Roads were gathered in one place. The various treasures they had collected. A dazzling array of treasures. It was enough to dazzle one's eyes. All kinds of sage pills and divine medicines. Extraordinary weapons. Innumerable ancient artifacts. Each of them had a great background. Would ordinary sky prides be dazzled by all these treasures? They were extremely excited. However, to Zhang Xiaoyao, who had seen the world since he was young, it was just SOSO. At Jun Xiaoyao's level, it was difficult to move him unless it was a true treasure. The next item to be traded is a rare chaos source crystal. It's excellent for cultivation or refining divine armaments and Dharma treasures. As Elder Wang spoke, he took out a few chaos source crystals. It was a dark-colored crystal. There seemed to be a chaotic mist rolling inside the crystal. That was chaos chi. Like myriad chi, it was the rarest energy substance in the world. The value of these chaos source crystals was equivalent to the entire wealth of some sky prides. Chaos source crystals. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes showed a hint of interest. He did not forget that he still had the second half of the body scripture to cultivate. If he wanted to cultivate the second half of the body scripture, he would need all kinds of rare energy to expand the 3,000 Sumeru worlds in his body. Previously, Jun Xiaoyao was prepared to cultivate with myriad chi when he was free. Now that he saw the chaos source crystals, he could absorb the chaos chi within to aid his cultivation. Soon, the chaos source crystals were auctioned off. I bid 100 immortal essences. Thunder Quake Sect's junior sect master, Lei Zhen, shouted. Immortal essences were more precious than immortal essences. Only in places like the ultimate ancient road would there be more of them. I bid 200. Sky Treasure Sect's young master, Chen Duozai, shouted lazily. Lei Zhen glanced at Chen Duozai and his eyes twitched. No one present could compete with Chen Duozai in terms of wealth. At that moment, a charming voice sounded from the VIP room on the second floor. My son of God wants 500 immortal essences. The voice came from Fairy Yuan. Chen Duozai's face twitched when he heard that. He was confident that he could crush the others present with money. However, he did not have the confidence to face Jun Xiaoyao. In the end, no one dared to compete with Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao successfully obtained the chaos source crystals. Jun Xiaoyao was still a little dispirited about the following deals. After a few more rounds of auction, Elder Wang, the sage of the business alliance of 10,000 races, suddenly revealed a strange smile. He said, "Everyone, the next item to be auctioned should be of great interest to all the male cultivators present. It's here, it's here. It's here for the fun part." The Thunder Quake Sect's junior sect master, Chen Duozai, and the others' eyes lit up slightly. This was the main event. A cage was pushed up and the curtain was opened. Inside was a leopard girl with a strong and healthy figure. There were many strange races on the ultimate ancient road, such as the Naga tribe, the leopard tribe, the centaurs, and so on. These races were scattered across the ancient planets along the way. Many of them were women of different races, and they were all very popular female slaves. The ancient road was long, and one needed to be comforted occasionally. These female slaves of different races were naturally very popular. "I'll take it." A male cultivator began to bid. Jun Xiaoyao only glanced at her indifferently before looking away. Soon, the leopard lady was bought by a male cultivator with a faint look on his face. Next were a few female slaves of different races. There were bird men, beast women, and even an octopus woman with tentacles all over her body. However, the octopus woman was bought by a female cultivator with a flushed face. "Everyone, the next female slave of different races is not ordinary. I heard from the person who captured her that she is the princess of that race." Elder Wang's words immediately attracted the attention of the male cultivators present. Just the identity of the princess of a different race alone made many of the male cultivators present excited. An iron cage was pushed up and the curtain was opened. Everyone immediately looked over. Chapter 613. Inside the cage was a young girl from the Naga tribe. She was about 13 or 14 years old and had an exquisite oval face the size of a palm. She looked like a porcelain doll. However, compared to her youthful face, her figure didn't match with his. She had developed a little too early and was more mature. Those surging waves would probably make many adult women secretly envious and jealous. Below the young girl was a green snake tail. Its scales were as shiny as jade, like a piece of art. At this moment, the young serpent woman was curling her snake tail. She wanted to force herself to be fierce, but she was not confident enough. Her green eyes were filled with fear. After all, She had grown up under the care of the serpent woman queen. Because she was curious about the outside world, she secretly ran out of the ancestral land. In the end, she was caught by a passing prodigy. She was sold to this place. At the thought of being sold to others as a slave, the young serpent woman could not help but tremble. She could no longer pretend to be fierce. The young serpent woman's appearance instantly made the eyes of many male cultivators present light up. That childlike face, that bosom, that snake tail, that expression, wonderful, serpent woman. Jun Xiaoyao also sized up the young serpent woman. His eyes were calm. He remembered that the Temple of Doom seemed to be on the ancient planet where the serpent men lived. On the stage, the Sage King Elder cleared his throat and said, "Everyone, I don't need to introduce the serpent woman. Those who have used her before will understand." Hearing this, many prodigies cursed silently. He was a sage king, yet he was so disrespectful. Of course, when it came to matters between men and women, not to mention sage kings, even primes were not exempt. Unless they cultivated the legendary sunflower manual that cut off their desires. However, this person's identity is not ordinary. She seems to be related to the serpent woman's sacred leader, Queen Medusa. Guests who are not confident should be more cautious. These words made many prodigies who were eager to try calm down. The serpent men were not a powerful race that could not be provoked. However, no one wanted to be targeted by a sacred leader. Although there were human enforcers patrolling the ancient road, there was no guarantee that they would be assassinated by other races. Without some confidence, he would not have dared to bid for this Naga princess. "I bid 300 immortal essences," Qian Duotsai from Heavenly Treasure Sect said. 400. The young master of the Thunderclap sect gritted his teeth and said. Following that, some of the Sky Prides who were not afraid of the serpent men also began to bid for the princess. The atmosphere was even more lively than the previous auctioned treasures. He had no choice. He was a man after all. Looking at these male cultivators whose eyes were shining like hungry wolves, the young serpent woman hugged her snake tail with her delicate arms and whimpered softly. "Mother," suddenly, a charming voice sounded. "I bid 500 immortal essences." The person who spoke. It was Hu Qingqing. Why does Hu Qingqing want to film this young serpent woman? Could it be that you want to train him personally? Many people were surprised. And in the private room on the second floor, Jun Xiaoyao's gaze was fixed on the young serpent woman. His keen consciousness and probing ability detected that the bloodline of this Naga girl was somewhat unusual. Could it be that she is that divine lord? Queen Medusa's daughter? Jun Xiaoyao thought to himself. Beside him, Heavenly Maiden Yuan said, "Lord Son of God, we must bid for this girl. She may be of help to our trip to the Temple of Doom." Jun Xiaoyao nodded slightly. He knew too. Then why did Hu Qingqing bid for this young serpent woman? It was probably because of the Temple of Doom. Under Jun Xiaoyao's signal, Lu Renjia began to bid. 800 immortal essences. The son of God of the Jun family is going to bid again. Isn't it enough to have a beautiful Heavenly Maiden Yuan? Does he want to play with a dragon and 2 phoenixes? He has the sacred body of the ancients. Can't we compare? Can't compare. Seeing Jun Xiaoyao bid, many Sky Prides shook their heads regretfully. First, because they were afraid. They didn't want to compete with Jun Xiaoyao. Second, because they knew. Even if they wanted to compete, they definitely couldn't win. Jun Xiaoyao's background? It was enough to hang Qian Duotsai and beat him. Damn it. Hu Qingqing took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling. As long as Jun Xiaoyao was there, she would definitely lose. Seeing this scene, Saint King Elder shook his head with a wry smile. As soon as Jun Xiaoyao opened his mouth, no one else dared to compete with him. The young serpent woman in the cage. Seeing this scene, she was extremely nervous. What kind of status did the person who bid for her have? No one in the audience dared to compete with him. In the young girl's mind, she immediately painted the image of a fiendish demon. Only such a person would cause others to be afraid. In the end, the young serpent woman was unsurprisingly won by Jun Xiaoyao. Everyone, the next few items are the highlight of this auction. Saint King Elder's tone became a little more serious. Everyone held their breaths and waited. The first item that was brought up was a supreme artifact. It looked like a demon-subduing rod. A supreme artifact was not something that could be found on the streets. Moreover, this supreme artifact was obviously very ancient and had the potential to transform. Jun Xiaoyao glanced at it and looked away. He was not interested. In the end, the demon-subduing rod was won by Chen Duozai at a high price. Next, the second rare item was brought up. It was a jade bottle. Saint King Elder opened the seal of the jade bottle. In an instant, immortal light shone, spiritual energy overflowed, and runes imprinted in the void. Everyone who smelled it felt like they were about to ascend to immortality. Immortal pill fragment. Everyone's eyes lit up. Anything related to immortals was precious beyond measure. Immortal artifacts, immortal sutras, immortal fetuses, immortal blood, and so on. The item in the jade bottle should be the extremely precious immortal pill fragment. Someone is actually willing to put this item up for auction? Someone asked suspiciously. That's normal. Although the immortal pill fragment is good, it depends on whether it can be absorbed. Those who are not qualified to refine it will only explode and die, someone explained. Next, the immortal pill fragment was auctioned off by everyone. I bid 500 immortal essences. I bid 700. I bid 1,000. At this time, Lu Renjia's voice was heard from Jun Xiaoyao's private room again. 2,000 immortal essences. It had to be said that this had indeed stunned many people. Some of the geniuses also showed signs of struggle. They did not dare to compete with Jun Xiaoyao for what he wanted. Chen Duozai stood up and cupped his hands at Jun Xiaoyao's private room, saying, I'm quite interested in the shard of the divine pill as well. I apologize for offending you, divine child. After that, Chen Duozai bid 3,000 immortal essences. This move made many people look at Chen Duozai in a new light. This way, not only would he not offend Jun Xiaoyao, but he could also reasonably compete for what he wanted. In the private room, Jun Xiaoyao chuckled and did not care. He called Lu Renjia over and whispered something in his ear. Lu Renjia immediately sucked in a breath of cold air, sucking in all the cold air in the private room. Young master, luxury is a crime. Jun Xiaoyao's generosity shocked Lu Renjia. Go ahead. Jun Xiaoyao did not care. Then, Lu Renjia's slightly trembling voice was heard. My young master bid 5 seals of doctrine. Chapter 614. Lu Renjia's words silenced the entire treasure tower. Not to mention the others, even the nouveau riche Chen Duozai was stunned. He subconsciously asked, what is he talking about? I think it's 5 seals of proving doctrine. Some of the geniuses gulped. Their throats were dry. After a brief moment of stupor, a clamor broke through the sky. Oh my God, the seals of proving doctrine. Isn't that what I've been dreaming of? If I could integrate a few seals of proving doctrine, I would have been on the list of giant. By the way, I heard that the son of God of the Jun family does have a lot of seals of proving doctrine. He doesn't need them, so he gives them to the people around him. He's rich. He's not just any rich. I'm impressed. All kinds of noises, exclamations, and astonishment could be heard. Even the elder of the business alliance of the 10,000 clans, who was used to seeing the world, was slightly stunned. He then shook his head with a wry smile. This young man doesn't care about martial ethics. How can others compete with him? I've lost. This is the first time I've lost to someone in terms of wealth. Chen Duozai slumped into a chair. No amount of immortal essence was as precious as the seals of proving doctrine. Those are the seals of proving doctrine. If I could get them. Hu Qingqing continued to gnash her teeth. Her heart was filled with jealousy and hatred. She was jealous because Tian Niu Yuan made the first move and pulled Jun Xiaoyao to her side. She hated that Jun Xiaoyao did not have any feelings for her. Although she was a little seductive and a little wild, she was still a beautiful woman. Why did Jun Xiaoyao not like her and humiliate her? Hu Qingqing was like a resentful woman in her room. Her heart was filled with resentment. In the end, Jun Xiaoyao successfully obtained the immortal pill fragment. With that thing in hand, Jun Xiaoyaro would be able to condense divine qi again in a short amount of time. Everyone, there's one last treasure, the elder of the Saint King said, but his tone was hesitant. He looked hesitantly at the VIP box on the second floor, but he gritted his teeth and took it out. It was a transparent bottle. Inside the bottle were 5 or 6 drops of blood essence with a tinge of gold. They were jumping around. This blood essence. They were incompatible with each other, like blood agate plated with a layer of gold leaf, extremely resplendent. Even if they were separated by a bottle, even the sky prides present could feel it. The vigorous power that was contained within it. The blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients. For a moment, all of the clamor stopped. If it was under normal circumstances, the appearance of the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients would definitely attract a lot of attention. Countless people fought to get it. That was because the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients was too precious. Although it was impossible to directly transform into the sacred body of the ancients, it could still cleanse and refine one's body, making one's physical body unparalleled. If he were to refine enough of the sacred body of the ancients, he could even manifest part of the power of the sacred body of the ancients. Did Jun Xiaoyaro use the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients? It nourished Jiang Shengyi's delicate body. Not only did it heal her injuries, but it also healed her hidden injuries. It had even improved her physique by a large margin. It made up for the weakness of the natural embryo of Tao. Could it be said? The sacred body of the ancients was indeed the flesh of Tang Sanzang. But now, the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients was right in front of him. No one dared to be the first to make a bid. Why? Because there was a living sacred body of the ancients present, and it was an existence that no one dared to provoke. In the VIP box, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were cold. The blood in his body was faintly burning. Did he encounter a bloodline of the same origin? It caused a reaction. Of course, those few drops of blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients could not be compared to Jun Xiaoyao's sacred body of the ancients. Jun Xiaoyaro had a sacred body of the ancients that broke 10 shackles. He was born with no shackles. The owner of the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients was obviously far from Jun Xiaoyao's level. It might even be difficult for him to cultivate the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients. On the stage, Elder Wang wanted to say something. The door of the box on the second floor was pushed open. Jun Xiaoyaro stepped down with his hands behind his back. An aura of dignity covered the entire place. Son of God, this. Elder Wang wanted to say something but stopped. Get out of the way, Jun Xiaoyaro said coldly and took the bottle in his hand. In an instant, the few drops of blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients in the bottle reacted. They jumped violently and rubbed against Jun Xiaoyao's palm against the body of the bottle. It felt as if he had seen the king of the sacred body lineage. Jun Xiaoyaro closed his eyes slightly. It was as if he could see an ancient and desolate planet in the depths of the ancient road. The dilapidated temple and the dilapidated mountain gate seemed to be telling of the past glory. The sacred palace of the ancients. For some reason, Jun Xiaoyaro uttered these words. He suddenly remembered that when Jun Xiaoyaro wanted to create his own great path in the lower world, the divine tribulation descended. It was the sacred body of the fallen that had protected him. Before the sacred body of the fallen was annihilated, he had told Jun Xiaoyaro. The sacred body lineage depended on him. Remember, go to the sacred palace of the ancients. At that time, Jun Xiaoyaro didn't understand the meaning of the sacred body of the fallen's words, nor did he know where the sacred palace of the ancients was. Now that he thought about it, Jun Xiaoyaro finally understood. He didn't expect the sacred body of the fallen to know that Jun Xiaoyaro would one day embark on the ultimate ancient road and go to the sacred body ancient planet. Divine Son. Elder King, who was standing at the side, looked troubled. Jun Xiaoyaro opened his eyes. His gaze was like lightning. He said coldly, "Where is the person who took out the blood essence to trade?" "I'm sorry, Son of God. This merchant alliance has rules." "We can't say," Elder Wang said awkwardly. "You can't say? Are you sure?" Jun Xiaoyaro took a step forward. Golden qi and blood surged. It was as if a golden god king had arrived. Even the Saint King Realm Elder of the Merchant Alliance felt a sense of suffocation. How powerful is the Son of God of the Jun family? The Elder of the Merchant Alliance was shocked. Why did he feel that Jun Xiaoyaro was more powerful than the Saint King? At that moment, Jun Xiaoyaro seemed to have detected something. The corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. Trying to run? Jun Xiaoyaro broke through the dome of the treasure tower and came into the void. Far away, a figure was driving a starry sky flying ship. He was panicking and trying to escape from the ancient planet of Shanqi. Jun Xiaoyaro raised his hand. His magic power condensed into the divine god's spear and shot it at the starry sky flying ship. The void was pierced, and a sharp whistling sound was heard. Boom! The flying ship exploded. Sparks flew everywhere. Jun Xiaoyaro deliberately held back. He didn't kill the person directly. He wanted to ask something. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the void. Rune nomological imprints directly grabbed the battered and exhausted figure and pulled him over. Son of God, spare my life. Spare me. I have nothing to do with this. It was a young man who was being held by the law hand. He was crying and begging for mercy. If he knew that Jun Xiaoyaro would come to the trade fair, he wouldn't have accepted this task. Nothing to do with you. Speak clearly, Jun Xiaoyaro said indifferently. I was just asked by someone to auction the blood essence. I don't know who got it from. The young man was so scared that tears flowed down his face. Jun Xiaoyaro came to realize that he was nothing more than cannon fodder sent to die. Who asked you to do this? Jun Xiaoyaro said coldly. The Conqueror Star, the Kang family. The young man trembled. A gloomy look was seen in Jun Xiaoyao's eyes. It seemed like his opponent wasn't just the Conqueror. There was also the Overlord clan. What about the desolate ancient sacred palace? Had it declined? Otherwise, why would the Overlord clan be so fierce? At that moment, there were many questions in Jun Xiaoyao's mind. There were many mysteries waiting for him to solve. He casually clenched his fist. With a bang, the young man's body exploded into a bloody pulp. Nothing was left. Conqueror Star. Kang family. Jun Xiaoyaro muttered. In his deep eyes, there seemed to be an ancient star burning. Chapter 6:15. The tyrant body and the sacred body were mortal enemies. If they ran into each other, there was no need to say anything. They would just fight. Therefore, Jun Xiaoyaro felt nothing but coldness toward the tyrant body and the Kang family of the Conqueror. He also wanted to know what happened to the sacred palace of the ancients. He wanted to know if there were other sacred bodies of the ancients or descendants of the sacred body in the depths of the ancient road. However, he could not rush these things. Jun Xiaoyaro still needed to cultivate. Because what he had to fight was not just the tyrant body, but the entire tyrant body. Jun Xiaoyaro let out a sigh and calmed down. He was already thinking about his future plans. With the blood essence of the sacred body that he obtained after breaking 10 shackles, he should have the ability to help other sacred bodies or their descendants unlock their potential. Maybe I'll have a sacred body of the ancients as my follower, Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. Of course, this was all for later. Jun Xiaoyaro returned to Baoqiu. The scene of him casually killing someone in the void was also witnessed by everyone. They could not help but feel terrified and fearful. Jun Xiaoyaro was truly unbridled. No one or force was capable of making him hold back in the slightest. Son of God, this. The elder of the Business Alliance choked and was speechless. Jun Xiaoyaro was too ferocious and decisive, killing the seller right there and then. The Son of God wants the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients. Does anyone have a problem with that? Jun Xiaoyaro looked around and said coldly. Even when the elixir fragments were being auctioned, Jun Xiaoyaro did not say anything. He used his power to suppress others. However, at that moment, he had spoken. There was silence all around. Of course, everyone knew that Jun Xiaoyaro was not in a good mood right now. It was no different from asking for trouble. Son of God, this is against the rules. The elder of the Business Alliance was anxious. Don't worry, the Son of God will not take it for free. Jun Xiaoyaro sneered and flicked his finger. A source stone fell to the ground with a clang. Everyone looked at it. It was not the celestial source, the divine source, or the immortal source. It was just an ordinary, low-level source stone. It could be said that even small cultivators who had just started cultivating wouldn't use this kind of origin stone for cultivation. Not to mention the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients. Now, is it against the rules? Jun Xiaoyaro teased. The business alliance of 10,000 clans. Then I'll give you the rules. Not to take your things for free. Yes, yes. The merchant union elder's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he nodded and bowed. It was apparent that Jun Xiaoyaro was expressing his dissatisfaction with the auction of the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients by the business alliance. If someone with a sacred body of the ancients was willing to put their blood essence up for auction, Jun Xiaoyaro would have nothing to say. However, it was clear that the blood was extracted from the sacred body by the conqueror Star Kang family through some means. Jun Xiaoyaro had no intention of refining the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients. He would use this essence blood to trace back to his ancestors and find the origin of the saint body. Let's go. Jun Xiaoyaro flung his sleeves and was about to leave. Suddenly, a demonic wind surged in the void, and a murderous aura filled the sky. He, as expected of the son of God of the Jun family. I've witnessed your tyranny today. The voice echoed in the void with a demonic aura that sent chills down one's spine. Above the starry sky, 4 figures appeared, all of them surging with terrifying murderous aura. Each of the figures was above the sage realm. The leader was a gray-haired man whose cultivation level had reached the late stage of the sage realm. It's the remaining 4 of the 8 minor saint. Is that the leader of the 8 minor saints, the 9-headed bug? I heard that he has the bloodline of the primordial 9 phoenix and the primordial 9 snakelet. Yeah, I've heard that the 9-headed bug escaped from the hands of the outlawed skyprides with ease. Even if he's not an outlawed skyprides, his strength is probably not far from it. You must be here to seek justice for the deaths of the 4 little saints. Not only the skyprides in the treasure tower, but also the entire Shanqi holy city. The 8 minor saints were well known on the ancient road, especially the 9-headed bug, who was already at the top of the giant leaderboard. Jun Xiaoyaro slowly raised his head and looked at the 9-headed bug and the other 3. The tie-in jade hair in his arms had her ears perked up. Her ruber-like eyes were red with hostility, and her snow-white fur stood on end. It was obvious that the little rabbit hated the 8 minor saints who hunted her and her master. Are you here to seek revenge for the 4 of them? Jun Xiaoyaro said indifferently as if the 4 of them did not exist. Sensing Jun Xiaoyao's disdain, the 9-headed bug frowned. However, he knew that Jun Xiaoyaro was very powerful, and it was impossible for him to defeat him. With that in mind, the 9-headed bug said, Son of God of the Jun family, you and I have minded our own business. Although you've killed 4 of my brothers, as long as you hand over the tie-in jade hair, I'll let bygones be bygones. The 9-headed bug's words stunned all the cultivators in Shanqi Holy City. They never expected the 9-headed bug, who had always been known for being overbearing, to be so cowardly. Not only was it cowardly, but it was so cowardly that it did not even want to seek revenge for the deaths of its brothers. Oh! Jun Xiaoyaro sneered. It seemed that the 9-headed bug was not stupid. It knew that he was a tough nut to crack, so it did not want to provoke him. However, the problem was that Jun Xiaoyaro was not in a good mood at the moment. The 9-headed bug and the others happened to be in his crosshairs. Young master likes to play with me so much, so he won't give me away. You 4 ugly things, just give up. The tie-in jade hair stood up on its hind legs, clenching its furry paws in protest. Jun Xiaoyaro liked to play with her so much, so why would he give her to the 9-headed bug? Not to mention, Jun Xiaoyaro still wanted to bring her to her master, son of God of the Jun family. What's your decision? The 9-headed bug ignored the tie-in jade hair and looked at Jun Xiaoyaro. Do you know that you're very unlucky? Jun Xiaoyaro suddenly said. What do you mean? The 9-headed bug frowned. This son of God is very unhappy right now, so I'll use your lives to vent my anger. As Jun Xiaoyaro finished speaking, he clenched his fist, and divine power surged. The strength of 100,000 divine elephants surged out from his fists. A single punch could cause stars to fall from the heavens and shatter the heavens. "Oh no, everyone, let's attack together," the nine-headed bug shouted when he saw Zhun Xiaoyao's punch that seemed to be able to destroy thousands of worlds. He also used his grand theurgy, and his murderous aura turned into a giant palm that could cover half the sky. The other three minor saints also used their own theurgies. The indigo lion spirit roared, and green ripples spread out. This was a theurgy that was similar to the lion roar, and it caused the void to ripple violently. The red tiger shark manifested his natal divine weapon, a long red saber that was refined from his shark fin. With a slash of the saber, a 1,000-foot-long crack was created in the void. The prodigy of the Scorpio tribe took out a scorpion tail needle and pierced through the void. The four minor saints attacked together, and their power was evident. However, under Zhun Xiaoyao's punch, even thousands of Daos would be shattered, let alone the four minor saints. Boom! A heaven-shaking, earth-shattering explosion rang out. It was as if fireworks had exploded in the sky above the Shanqi holy city, and many cracks appeared in the void. All the prodigies around the Shanqi ancient star were attracted by the explosion, and they couldn't help but wonder what the outcome would be. Chapter 616. Amidst the smoke, the indigo lion spirit, the red tiger shark, and the sky prides of the Scorpio tribe roared in anger. Even if they attacked with all their might, they could not block Zhun Xiaoyao's fist radiance. Zhun Xiaoyao's attack was too fierce. His punch seemed to be able to destroy the daoist patterns of the heavens, causing the surrounding void to collapse and shatter. Logically speaking, even if one reached the sage stage and had the ability to tear the void apart, it was impossible. Even so, it was impossible for him to be like Zhun Xiaoyao, who was able to cause a large area of the void to collapse with a casual punch. It could only be said that Zhun Xiaoyao's combat strength could not be measured simply by his cultivation level. Ah! Screams were heard from the explosion. The indigo lion spirit and the other two sky prides were crushed by the tremendous force and shattered inch by inch. Although their physical bodies were not weak, they still could not block Zhun Xiaoyao's punch. Boom! 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 3 explosions were heard as their bodies exploded, and even their primordial spirits were crushed into nothingness. Only the nine-headed bug was lucky enough to escape with his life. However, he spat out blood as cracks spread across his body. His originally cold expression turned into one of unprecedented horror. He knew that Zhun Xiaoyao had outlaw-level combat strength. However, their battle prowess was simply too strong. It was far stronger than the outlawed sky prides he fought before. "Let's go." That was the only word in the nine-headed bug's mind. Zhun Xiaoyao's strength had exceeded his expectations. It had far surpassed the outlaw-level combat strength. He originally thought that even if he could not defeat Zhun Xiaoyao, he could still leave with ease. Now, he was not sure if he could survive, let alone leave with ease. "You want to leave just like that?" Zhun Xiaoyao's expression was indifferent. He controlled the power of space and activated the Kunpeng's great divine power, displaying the Kunpeng's extreme speed. Endless spatial daoist patterns appeared under his feet as if they were intertwined into a Kunpeng. Zhun Xiaoyao was like a Kunpeng leaping into the sea. He was so fast that there was an ear-piercing sound of explosion. He threw a punch with the power of the divine elephant and the Kunpeng's infinite divine fists. The runes were as vast as the sea, and the Kunpeng was boundless. Its divine power was shocking. Seeing this, the nine-headed bug felt a sense of danger. He let out a long howl, and his body tore apart and expanded. He had actually transformed into his true form. It was a ferocious beast with 9 heads. There was a bird head, a python head, and a flood dragon head. It really looked like an ancient great evil. Roar! 9 long howls were heard as the 9 heads of the nine-headed bug spat out all kinds of water, fire, poison, and energy beams. So strong. The sky prides of Shanqi Sacred City could not help but twitch their eyelids when they saw the 9-headed bug. He was like a big boss in a dangerous cave, with a terrifying murderous aura and pressure. They finally understood why the 9-headed insect was qualified to compete with the outlawed sky prides. However, in the next moment, Zhun Xiaoyao's punch was godly. The Kuan Peng's boundless divine fist blossomed with terrifying black and golden light. That was the transformation of the Kuan fish and the Great Peng. The boundless Tao laws in the surrounding void seemed to shatter under Zhang Xiaoyao's punch. Facing this punch that pierced through the sky, even if the nine-headed bug revealed its true form, it could not block it. Spurt! Zhang Xiaoyao's fist radiance directly penetrated the nine-headed bug's body. Blood splattered across the sky and dyed the starry sky red. The nine-headed bug let out a long howl in pain. Zhang Xiaoyao, do you really want to become enemies with the Sun God Mountain, the 10 princes of Jinwu, and the others over a Taiyin jade hair? Sensing that the situation was extremely bad, the nine-headed bug had no choice but to use the 10 princes of Jinwu. After all, the 10 princes of the Golden Crow were too famous in the ancient road of ultimate. They were the 10 eternal blazing suns, and there was more than one outlawed skyprides among them. Moreover, the one who wanted to capture the Taiyin jade hair and Yu Chanhuan was the 10th prince, who was the youngest among the 10 princes of the Golden Crow. However, he was the most talented and possessed the sun god constitution. It's just 10 mixed birds. Don't you think it's ridiculous to use them to threaten the Son of God? Zhang Xiaoyao sneered. Did anyone have the right to use them to threaten him? All skyprides in the Shanqi holy city were speechless. Zhang Xiaoyao was the only one who dared to call the 10 princes of the Golden Crow a mixed bird. Even outlawed beings would not dare to provoke the 10 princes of the Golden Crow. This was because if the 10 princes attacked at the same time, the outlawed skyprides would not be able to stop them and would be killed. The 10 princes all possessed the Golden Crow bloodline. If they did not die, they would become Chaos Tao Lords or even Boundary Emperors in the future. Even the youngest 10th prince had the bearing of a great emperor. Don't worry. It won't be long before those 10 mixed birds join you in the afterlife. Zhang Xiaoyao said coldly. With a shake of his arm, boundless divine power burst out and tore the nine-headed bug's body apart. Its flesh and blood scattered in all directions. Amidst the bloody mist, a pitch-black primordial spirit was about to fly into the distance. Zhang Xiaoyao channeled the power of his primordial spirit and spat out a mouthful of chaos divine grindstone's blood that seemed capable of obliterating the heavens. The nine-headed bug's primordial spirit did not even have the chance to struggle before it was crushed into nothingness by the chaos divine grindstone. At this point, the 8 primordial imperial small saints who were quite famous on the ancient road of ultimate extremity were all dead. The air was filled with the thick smell of blood. Zhang Xiaoyao stood in the void in his white robe. His body was spotless and not a single drop of blood stained his body. He killed the 4 small saints with a wave of his hand. Everyone was shocked speechless by his demeanor. Before this, they had only heard of Zhang Xiaoyao's legend. Now, they witnessed it with their own eyes. The nine-headed bug that could escape from the outlawed skyprides could not even withstand a single punch from the Zhang family's Son of God. It was killed just like that. The Zhang family's Son of God probably already possesses outlawed combat strength, right? Ordinary outlawed skyprides don't have combat strength like the Zhang family's Son of God. He must be the taboo of the taboo. Many skyprides discussed and praised him. Inside the Bao Q, Hu Qingqing's charming face was also a little dazed. She did not expect Zhang Xiaoyao to be so strong that even the nine-headed bug could not withstand a single blow from him. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoyao's white robe fluttered in the wind and he looked extremely charming. Even Hu Qingqing, who was full of resentment, could not help but admire him. In other words, if Zhang Xiaoyao was not so mean to her, Hu Qingqing would definitely lick his boots like a bitch. However, Zhang Xiaoyao did not care about her at all. She did not even have the right to be a bitch. This was infuriating. Now, Hu Qingqing could only rely on Mo Jinyu from the Holy Spirit Island to help her. Innate holy spirits are invincible among their peers. Zhang Xiaoyao, you'll regret rejecting me. Hu Qingqing thought to herself. The entire Shanqi sacred city regained its peace. Zhang Xiaoyao also returned to his residence with Tian Yuyuan, Lu Ranjia, and the others. As for the girl from the Noga tribe, the people from the business alliance of 10,000 tribes would naturally take her away. Although the matter had ended, the discussion about Zhang Xiaoyao did not stop. The son of God of the Jun family has offended the Sun God Mountain and the 10 princes of Jinwu, right? Let's not talk about the 10 princes of Jinwu. Have you counted how many forbidden existences the son of God of the Jun family has offended in Shanqi Ancient Star? Let me think. First, he saved the Tai-Yin Jade Hair and became enemies with the 10 princes of the Golden Crow tribe. Then, at Tianyu Yuan's banquet, he killed the Qin family's sky pride, Qin Zimo. He also indirectly offended the Qin family's son of God, Qin Wudao. At the auction, he also refined the sky-reaching rock spirit. He became enemies with the innate Holy Spirit of the Holy Spirit Island, Mo Jinyu. And judging from the fact that the son of God of the Jun family killed the person who auctioned the blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients, it seems to be related to the tyrant body, the archenemy of the sacred body. The group of cultivators recalled and were suddenly stunned. They did not know before, but they were shocked when they did. So, the son of God of the Jun family has offended forbidden existences not long after he set foot on the ancient ultimate road? Amazing. I have nothing to say. Not many people dare to offend the son of God of the Jun family, but the son of God of the Jun family has offended many forbidden existences. Next, it's going to be interesting. Chapter 617. The entire Shanqi holy city was talking about Jun Xiaoyao. Under the starry sky, he killed the 4 minor saints and the 9-headed bug with a single hand. This was something that even the outlawed sky prides could not do. No one could imagine what Jun Xiaoyao's limits were. As for Jun Xiaoyao himself, he was already resting in Fairy Yuan's residence. He did not care about what the outside world said about him. Call him domineering or arrogant, this was Jun Xiaoyao's way of doing things. He thought what he thought and did what he did. He had no scruples and was lawless. In other words, Jun Xiaoyao was the law, and Jun Xiaoyao was the heavens. At this moment, in Fairy Yuan's room, Fairy Yuan sat next to Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao stroked the Tai-Yin Jade Hair in his hand as he looked at the Noga girl locked in the iron cage. This young girl from the Noga tribe had a pale and youthful face. She did not look old among the Noga tribe. However, her figure was strangely mature. She had a big bosom and a slim waist. That green snake tail did not weaken the girl's attractiveness. Instead, it added a strange charm to the girl. It was a classic example of a child's face being humiliated. Is this the racial talent of the Noga girls? Jun Xiaoyao thought to himself. If it was a male cultivator with a special fetish, his eyes would definitely light up as if he had found a treasure. However, Jun Xiaoyao's expression was calm and clear. He did not have a hobby of refining copper. Of course, legal lollies like Jiang Luoli were a different story. While Jun Xiaoyao was looking at the Noga girl, the girl was also looking at Jun Xiaoyao. To be honest, she was stunned. Previously, the girl thought that the person who bought her would be a fierce and fearsome 7-foot-tall man. Who would have thought that it would be a handsome young man in a snow-white robe? In the Noga tribe, most of the women were enchanting, charming, and beautiful. However, the male Nogas were not flattering. They were like lizard men, cold and fierce. The girl had lived in the Noga tribe's ancestral land since she was young. Naturally, it was impossible for her to see men outside the Noga tribe. When she sneaked out of the ancestral land, she let down her guard because she saw that the human cultivators were all kind and did not look like the male Nogas in her tribe. Who would have thought that she would be abducted? The girl's heart was traumatized by the humans. However, it was difficult for her to hate him. Because he was too handsome. What's your name? Jun Xiaoyao asked. My name is Bai Ling, the young serpent woman named Bai Ling stuttered. Originally, she still had the thought of fighting to the end and wanted to put on a stubborn and fierce look. However, he simply couldn't bring himself to act tough when facing Jun Xiaoyao. Whatever Jun Xiaoyao asked, she answered without thinking. Jun Xiaoyao snapped his fingers, and the iron cage containing the girl shattered. Come here, Jun Xiaoyao said calmly. Fear appeared on Bai Ling's face when she heard this. Was it finally time for what was to come? The Noga tribe had always matured early. Although Bai Ling had never experienced it before, she did not understand it. She instinctively knew something. I'm still young. Bai Ling stammered. She was afraid of the unknown. Zhang Xiaoyao was speechless. Was he that kind of person? That shouldn't be the case. At this moment, the tie-in jade hair in Zhang Xiaoyao's arms transformed into a little girl with silver hair. She smiled. Don't worry, young master is very good. He won't do anything to you. Bai Ling felt a little safer when she saw a little girl around her age. She moved her tail closer to Zhang Xiaoyao. The closer she got, the more amazed Bai Ling was at Zhang Xiaoyao's handsomeness. He's so handsome. He shouldn't be a bad person, right? Bai Ling thought to herself. Zhang Xiaoyao suddenly reached out and grabbed Bai Ling's tail. Ah! Bai Ling let out a delicate cry, her delicate face instantly turning red. To the Naga tribe, touching one's tail was a form of courtship. Of course, Zhang Xiaoyao didn't know this. At this moment, he was sizing up the scales on the Bai Ling snake's tail. There were actually ancient runes flowing within them. At the same time, Zhang Xiaoyao could sense that Bai Ling's bloodline was not ordinary. There was actually a hint of ancient aura in her bloodline. You're the princess of the Naga tribe, and your mother is Queen Medusa? Zhang Xiaoyao asked. Bai Ling's face was red as she nodded her sharp chin. A hint of suspicion appeared on Zhang Xiaoyao's face. As for Queen Medusa, she was only a holy lord. Logically speaking, although her bloodline power was strong, it was impossible for her to have such an ancient aura. Zhang Xiaoyao also sensed Bai Ling's cultivation level. She had reached the quasi-saint realm. A quasi-saint at such a young age could definitely be described as a monster. However, it was strange. Bai Ling didn't seem to know any remarkable martial arts, nor did she know how to use her own strength. It was as if she had grown up in a greenhouse. Who is your father? Zhang Xiaoyao continued asking. The bloodline in Bai Ling's body was strange. It definitely wasn't the bloodline of a holy lord. Zhang Xiaoyao even guessed that this bloodline power was at least at the quasi-emperor level. However, the Naga tribe didn't have a quasi-emperor. This was strange. Since this bloodline wasn't passed down by Queen Medusa, Zhang Xiaoyao felt that it was very likely related to Bai Ling's father. When Bai Ling heard this, she shook her head blankly. I don't have a father. I heard from my mother that she gave birth to me alone. What? Zhang Xiaoyao was really surprised. The Naga tribe didn't reproduce asexually. How could Queen Medusa alone give birth to Bai Ling? As expected. At the side, Fairy Yuan's eyes flashed as if she knew something. Fairy Yuan, you seem to know something? Zhang Xiaoyao asked. Fairy Yuan pondered. Actually, I don't know too much. However, I feel that it should be related to the Temple of Doom. The Temple of Doom? Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes showed that he was thinking. He was becoming more and more interested in this ancient site. How was Bai Ling born? Where did her bloodline come from? What did it have to do with the Temple of Doom? Zhang Xiaoyao felt that there might be a big secret behind this. If he knew the answer and obtained the benefits, it might be of great help to him. Zhang Xiaoyao had always been the kind of person who would never do anything unless there was something to gain from it. He was only willing to explore things with benefits. Bai Ling's small eyes secretly glanced at Zhang Xiaoyao. Her small face revealed an uneasy expression. She didn't know how Zhang Xiaoyao would deal with her. Was he really going to play an adult's game? Zhang Xiaoyao glanced at Bai Ling and said, Stay here for now. After that, I'll go to your hometown, the ancient underworld planet. What? Bai Ling can go home? Bai Ling's green eyes widened in disbelief. This little brother in front of her had paid a huge price to buy her, and now he wanted to send her back. There was such a good person in the human race. Of course. Zhang Xiaoyao smiled. Those familiar with him knew that this smile had a hint of calculation. Going to the ancient underworld planet to explore the Temple of Doom, Bai Ling was an important chess piece. She couldn't be lost. At the critical moment, she could even be used to threaten the Naga tribe's sacred lord powerhouse, Queen Medusa. However, the naive Bai Ling naturally didn't know Zhang Xiaoyao's inner plan. She only felt that this little brother in front of her was not only good-looking but also kind. He was so kind that he wanted to send her home. Such a kind person was hard to find. Chapter 618. In the following days, Jun Xiaoyaro did not rush to the ancient heavenly underworld star. There was still some time before the Temple of Doom was fully opened. At that time, when the Divine Temple opened, it was clear that Fairy Yuan and Hu Qingqing would not be the only ones to explore. They were not the only ones interested in the Temple of Doom. Before this, Jun Xiaoyaro was planning to condense the next strand of immortal qi. After obtaining the immortal pill fragment, his foundation would be even stronger. Jun Xiaoyaro began his closed-door cultivation. As for Bai Ling, she was completely relaxed when she learned that she could go home. She became friends with the Taiyin jade hair. Fairy Maiden Yuan was also adjusting her breathing and cultivating as she began her preparations. She was not weak either. She was in the late-stage sage stage. Jun Xiaoyaro sat cross-legged in a quiet spiritual qi secret chamber. A vortex was spinning between his palms. Black and white lights were converging. Vaguely, they seemed to have transformed into two life and death Dharma wheels, one black and one white. As the Dharma wheels spun, dense life and death arcana flowed. It was as if countless living beings were being born and destroyed in Jun Xiaoyao's palms. Jun Xiaoyaro wanted to use the heavenly wheel of death to comprehend the will of life and death. With Jun Xiaoyao's monstrous comprehension, this was naturally not a problem. Then, he took out the immortal pill fragment again. Although it was only a fragment, the immortal energy was enough to make one feel as if they had ascended to immortality. Jun Xiaoyaro activated the god-devouring demonic technique again. A pitch-black devouring vortex appeared and began to devour and refine the immortal pill fragment. Vaguely, an embryonic form of immortal qi with the will of life and death began to appear on the surface of his body. Just as Jun Xiaoyaro was immersed in his cultivation. There was another commotion on the ultimate ancient road. At the starting point of the ancient road, where the Dragon Gate was, there were thousands of strands of divine light that illuminated the world. Although it was not as terrifying as when Jun Xiaoyaro stepped into the Dragon Gate and caused hundreds of dragons to roar, it was still shocking enough. Another outlawed Sky Pride has stepped into the Dragon Gate and entered the ancient road. I wonder which immortal realm this taboo is from. Sigh. In this era of great battles, all sorts of monsters have appeared. Some of the outlawed Sky Prides on the ancient road who had sensed the Dragon Gate's energy waves sighed softly. In this world of great battles, the competition was simply too intense. In the past epochs, outlawed Sky Prides were few and far between when the ancient road opened. However, in this era, taboos were everywhere, and the taboos list had been published long ago. There were even rumors saying that the monarch ranking that had not been opened for many eras was about to be opened in the era of great competition. When that time came, only the geniuses who were ranked on the monarch ranking would have the right to decide the fate of the world. Even the outlawed Sky Prides had no choice but to retreat to the second line of duty. This ignited the outlawed Sky Pride's competitive spirit. To be able to obtain a taboo title, which one of them was weak? Just as all the prodigies were in awe, on the Dragon Gate side, divine light once again shone in all directions. What's going on? Another outlawed Sky Pride has crossed the Dragon's Gate in such a short time? Some of the outlawed Sky Prides were bewildered. Then, another shocking thing happened. The Dragon Gate was in an uproar once again. Divine light illuminated the sky. The third one. This time, the entire ancient road was in an uproar again. Some of the outlawed Sky Prides were so moved that they could not sit still anymore. What's going on? 3 outlawed Sky Prides have crossed the ancient road in such a short time? How is that possible? Although there are more outlawed Sky Prides in this era than in previous eras, they're not as common as cabbages. Many were bewildered, and some even suspected that something had happened to the Dragon Gate. However, the Dragon Gate was an ancient artifact that had spanned many eras. It was impossible for something like this to happen. In other words, 3 outlawed Sky Prides had crossed the Dragon Gate in such a short time, and it was very likely that they had crossed it together. The 3 outlawed Sky Prides are on the same side. It seems like another powerful force is about to appear on the ancient road, some of the outlawed Sky Prides muttered. Outlawed Sky Prides were terrifying. Outlawed Sky Prides who banded together were even more terrifying. For example, The 10 Golden Crown Princes were outlawed sky prides who banded together against a common enemy. Who would dare to provoke them? Meanwhile, at the starting point of the ancient road, at the Dragon Gate, a large group of sky prides from the 9 heavens' immortal domain were dumbfounded. They stared blankly at the Dragon Gate that kept flashing with divine light. What a group of ferocious people! Following the crowd's gaze, a group of people had already crossed the Dragon Gate. They were the Jun family, the Jiang family, and Jun Xiaoyao's followers. Among them, Jiang Xingyi's snow-white robe fluttered in the wind. She looked graceful and elegant, and her long, snow-white hair fluttered gently in the wind. Her face was as beautiful as a painting. Her red lips curled up slightly as she looked at the ancient road with a smile. Xiaoyao, the strong always walk alone, but I won't allow you to be alone, Jiang Xingyi murmured. Her bright eyes were filled with determination. She was one of the 3 outlawed sky prides who had caused a commotion in the Dragon Gate. She was a one-of-a-kind innate Daoist embryo. Moreover, she had merged with Jun Xiaoyao's sacred body of the ancient's blood essence, which made up for the shortcomings of her physical body. She could even manifest part of the innate sacred body's power. After that, she had completely merged with and refined 20 seals of doctrine. Jiang Xingyi's current cultivation base had also reached the forbidden level. She wanted to catch up with Jun Xiaoyao's footsteps and stand side by side with him. Hehe, that's right. Although we're not as talented as Xiaoyao, we can't let him shoulder everything by himself. Beside her, a handsome man with a long umbrella in his hand and a flagon on his waist smiled slightly. It was Lord Grimm. As the former Sequence 0 of the Jun family, he had the Renhuang physique and had merged with many seals of doctrine that Jun Xiaoyao had given him. Lord Grimm had also reached the forbidden level without any surprise. Although cousin Xiaoyao alone can conquer all of history, we can't leave him behind too much. A handsome man with a black cloth over his eyes chuckled. It was Jun Lingtsang, the man with polychoria of the Jun family. He was the 3rd forbidden level who had caused a commotion. That's right. It's impossible for brother Xiaoyao to get rid of us. Jiang Luoli was also there. She clenched her fists and her eyes were bright. She had also merged with the seal of doctrine. Although she had not reached the forbidden level, she was still a quasi-forbidden level. She was a lot stronger than the other geniuses. We have to catch up with Master too. Yi Yu, Yang Qingying, and the reincarnation sacred flesh, Wang Chuan, were there too. They too possessed the strength of a quasi-forbidden level. They were not far away from becoming an outlawed genius. In addition to them, there were a few people who were related to Jun Xiaoyao, such as Xiao Moxian, Mu Yuhan, Princess Longji, Jun Mulan, Xiao Xian and the others who had improved significantly too. The seal of proving of the way that Jun Xiaoyao bestowed upon them enabled the cultivation of the people around him to reach a whole new level. 3 forbidden level cultivators, a group of quasi-forbidden level cultivators, and a group of quasi-forbidden level cultivators. It was a formidable force even in the Emperor Road. Oh my, are these people all close to the Son of God of the Jun family? The geniuses of the 9 heavens immortal realm were dumbfounded. What a luxurious lineup. They must have paid for it. However, on second thought, it was true that Jun Xiaoyao had given them the seal of doctrine. Everyone, let's meet at the end of the ancient path. Lord Grimm smiled. The space around him shuddered and teleported him to the beginning of the ancient path. The rest of the geniuses were teleported too. In the end, Jiang Xingyi was the only one left. She was looking into the distance. She stood there elegantly, like a crescent moon, like a pile of snow on a jade tree. Her beauty was suffocating. Then, on her beautiful and flawless face that was like a painting, a wisp of a little woman's moving coquettishness suddenly appeared. How dare you leave without saying goodbye? Xiaoyao, if we meet again, I won't forgive you so easily. Tilda. Chapter 619. In the blink of an eye, more than half a year had passed. The commotion in Shongqiu Sacred City gradually calmed down. However, there were still many geniuses visiting Fairy Yuan's private courtyard every day. There were also many female cultivators who came to see if they could try their luck and see the legendary Son of God. However, to their disappointment, There was no sign of anything happening in the courtyard where Jun Xiaoyaro was training in isolation. These female cultivators were not discouraged. As Jun Xiaoyao's fanatical fans, they had stayed in Shanqi Holy City to see Jun Xiaoyaro with their own eyes. During this period of time, Bai Ling had completely become friends with the lunar jade rabbit, Lu Runjia, and the others, becoming familiar with each other. On this day, there was a sudden movement in the courtyard that had been silent for a long time. Rumble. Heaven and earth were shaking. Many cultivators were shocked to find that the spiritual qi of the entire Shanqi ancient star was converging toward Jun Xiaoyao's courtyard. A terrifying spiritual qi storm formed in the sky above the courtyard. It was like a dragon that pierced through the stars. Many cultivators had never seen such a scene in their lives. Oh my God, even a supreme being's cultivation can't compare to this, right? Some people were shocked. Fairy Yuan, Bai Ling, Tai-Yin Jade Hair, Lu Runjia, and the others also sensed the movement and came out to take a look. Young master is finally coming out. Tai-Yin Jade Hair clapped and laughed. Goddess Yuan breathed a sigh of relief as well. She was truly worried that Jun Xiaoyaro would miss the opportunity to open the Temple of Doom if he went into seclusion for a few years. Bai Ling's eyes were also filled with anticipation. She was looking forward to Jun Xiaoyaro coming out of seclusion and bringing her back to Tianming Ancient Star. The spiritual qi storm traversed the sky. Even in the stars, it could be seen clearly. The surrounding stars were affected and trembled. Then, one by one, they fell and turned into a meteor shower. This scene was extremely shocking. It was not an exaggeration to say that a supreme being was breaking through. Is the Jun family's son of God about to break through to the Saint King stage? That one shouldn't have. No lightning tribulation descended. Someone said. But there is a divine will permeating the air. Could it be that the son of God of the Jun family is going to condense another strand of divine qi? Some geniuses asked suspiciously. I heard that the son of God of the Jun family has condensed 5 strands of divine qi. Doesn't that mean he has 6 strands? Thinking of this, all the cultivators couldn't help but shudder. 6 strands of immortal qi. Ordinary taboos could not reach this level. However, what they didn't know was that Jun Xiaoyaro had already cultivated 8 strands of immortal qi. The last 3 strands of immortal qi were condensed while refining the immortal fetus. The outside world was unaware of this. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, a figure left the courtyard and soared into the sky. Jun Xiaoyao's white robes fluttered in the wind, his demeanor elegant. He let out a clear cry, and the spiritual energy storm that spanned thousands of miles in the starry sky gathered around him and was absorbed by him. A wisp of immortal qi filled with the will of life and death coiled around his body like a dragon. The immortal qi of life and death was condensing. As the wisp of immortal qi condensed, the sound of a great bell rang out from Jun Xiaoyao's body, shocking the world. Including the wisp of immortal qi of life and death, Jun Xiaoyaro had condensed a total of 9 strands of immortal qi. 9 was the ultimate number. The number of Dian was 49. The emperor was also known as the emperor. 9 was higher than the sky. It could be said that Jun Xiaoyaro had completely reached a certain extreme. Even the ancient emperors, and immortal holy spirits might not have reached this level. What is going on? Why do I feel like the son of God of the Jun family is going to ascend? I think so too. That Dao sound is too mysterious. It seems like it is going to let people prove their Dao. Many geniuses from all directions raised their heads to look at the white-robed figure standing above the starry sky. Many female cultivators were so excited that they almost fainted. Their long wait was not in vain, as they were finally able to witness Jun Xiaoyao's unparalleled elegance. That Dao sound even made many cultivators sit cross-legged on the spot. It was as if they had an epiphany. 6 strands of immortal qi. Fairy Maiden Yuan also took a deep breath, and her well-shaped chest rose and fell, rippling beautifully. No matter how much she thought of Jun Xiaoyaro would always exceed her expectations. Fairy Yuan's eyes flickered as she felt Jun Xiaoyao's earth-shattering power. She seemed to be in deep thought. On the other side, Jun Xiaoyao's body trembled slightly as he suppressed the phenomenon. If news of 9 strands of immortal qi spread, it would definitely shock the entire ancient road. Even the outlawed sky prides would tremble. However, Zhang Xiaoyao did not think much of it. He did not think that it was a big deal at all. Limits are meant to be broken. 9 strands of immortal qi isn't my limit. Zhang Xiaoyao did not seem to be proud of himself at all. He absorbed the immortal qi of life and death into his body. His aura calmed down. The phenomenon and Dao sound around him also dissipated. Heaven and earth returned to normal. Some of the sky prides sat cross-legged on the ground. Their bodies trembled as they broke through a small realm. They were pleasantly surprised. They all cupped their fists respectfully at Zhang Xiaoyao. Zhang Xiaoyao slowly stepped down. The Taiyin jade hair was the first to rush up. It threw itself into Zhang Xiaoyao's arms without hesitation and rubbed its head against Zhang Xiaoyao like a pet. "Master, you've been in seclusion for so long, but you haven't touched me. I'm lonely too." The Taiyin jade hair mumbled. "All right, I'll make it up to you later." Zhang Xiaoyao rubbed the Taiyin jade hair's ears and head. He was simply raising a pet. When Bai Ling saw this scene, there was actually a wisp of faint envy in her beautiful eyes. Fairy Yuan stepped forward and glanced at Zhang Xiaoyao. She said sweetly, "In just half a year, the Son of God has condensed another strand of immortal qi. Now that you have 6 strands of immortal qi, the Son of God is definitely the top among the taboos." "That's nothing," Zhang Xiaoyao said. He did not correct her by saying that he had 9 strands of immortal qi. Because from the beginning to the end, he had never completely trusted Fairy Yuan. They were just cooperating and using each other. "Congratulations, Master. Your cultivation has improved again." Lu Renjia also cupped his fists respectfully. After that, he was also very attentive. He told Zhang Xiaoyao some important news that happened on the ancient road when he was in seclusion. For example, there seemed to be some unusual movements on the ancient heavenly underworld star where the Temple of Doom was located. There was a bit of chaos. The sky prides of the Emperor Road wanted to explore the ancient heavenly underworld star, but they clashed with the Naga tribe. There were bloody incidents from time to time. There was also news that the Sacred Island's innate sacred spirit, Mo Jinyu, had formed an alliance with the Nine-Tailed Fox clan's noble lady, Hu Qingqing. Mo Jinyu also said that if Zhang Xiaoyao dared to go to the ancient heavenly underworld star, she would definitely settle the score with him for the sky-piercing rock spirit. There was also news that the infamous 13 bandits of the Emperor Road seemed to be on the move as well. The 13 bandits of the Emperor Road loved to scheme and plot. They would intercept the strongest sky prides halfway and rob them of their opportunities of fortune, bloodline, and physique. There were even outlawed sky prides who were robbed of their inherited bloodlines. There was a rumor that one of the 13 bandits of the Emperor Road had said that he did not know how miraculous the sacred body of the ancient's blood essence and bones of supremacy were. In other words, they wanted to rob Zhang Xiaoyao of his sacred body of the ancients and bones of supremacy. Chapter 620. Upon hearing this news, Zhang Xiaoyao smiled and shook his head slightly. He did not take Mo Jinyu's threat to heart at all. The so-called innate sacred spirit was just a material to refine his universal qi cauldron. As for the 13 bandits of Emperor Road, they were even more laughable. Wanting to rob him of his blood essence and dig out his supreme being bone was simply a fantasy story. It was incomparably comical. "Young Master Zhang, you shouldn't underestimate the 13 bandits of Emperor Road. Their identities are mysterious, and their origins are a mystery. There's more than one outlawed being among them. The top few among the 13 bandits can threaten the lives of outlawed sky prides. Rumor has it that the immortal bandit, who ranks first among the 13 bandits, wears a grimacing mask, has the devourer bloodline, and has the ability to kill outlawed sky prides." Fairy Yuan warned solemnly. The 13 bandits wanted Zhang Xiaoyao's sacred body of the ancient's blood essence and honorable bone to give to the immortal bandit. It was hard to imagine how powerful the immortal bandit would become if he devoured Zhang Xiaoyao's sacred body of the ancient's blood essence and honorable bone. Of course, with Zhang Xiaoyao's strength, the probability of such a thing happening was almost zero. "Oh!" Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flashed. "The immortal bandit who wears a grimacing mask? Interesting. Could it be that he has something to do with that person again? Zhang Xiaoyao thought to himself. There were more and more mysteries now, and Zhang Xiaoyao needed to explore them one by one. How do you know so much about this? Zhang Xiaoyao looked at Fairy Yuan with a meaningful tone. Young Master Zhang, don't you know the goddess Lane's ability to gather information? Fairy Yuan replied calmly. He, indeed. Zhang Xiaoyao smiled and did not say anything else. He thought a lot in his mind. At this time, Lu Renjia spoke again. Young Master, there's another news that I think you'll be interested in. What is it? Zhang Xiaoyao asked. Lu Renjia told Zhang Xiaoyao about the 3 great taboos shaking up the ancient road. It seems that Sister Shengyi and the others have also stepped onto the ancient road and started their own trials. Zhang Xiaoyao smiled, revealing a rare sincere smile. For some reason, looking at this smile, Fairy Yuan felt that it was somewhat dazzling. When Zhang Xiaoyao treated her, it was as if he was wearing a cold mask, without any warmth. I know of the goddess of the Jiang clan who has a congenital embryo of the Great Path. Is she your lover, Master Zhang? Fairy Yuan looked straight at Zhang Xiaoyao and asked. Yes, Zhang Xiaoyao replied. Fairy Yuan's eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. She lowered her beautiful eyes and said, then she is really lucky to be treated like this by young Master Jun. It's not luck, but sincerity. Zhang Xiaoyao gave Fairy Yuan a meaningful look. Fairy Maiden Yuan was silent. Lu Renjia and the others only thought that Fairy Yuan might be jealous. Well, let's get ready. We have wasted a lot of time, and there is still a long way to go to the ancient underworld star. Zhang Xiaoyao flicked his sleeve. They were also preparing to set off for the ancient underworld star. During this time, Zhang Xiaoyao also asked Lu Renjia if he still wanted to go with him to the Temple of Doom on the Tianming ancient star. Lu Renjia, however, sighed and bowed to refuse. Thank you very much, young master, but my ability is limited. If I go to such a dangerous place, I will only cause trouble for young master. Besides, in terms of intelligence, Fairy Yuan is far better than me. Lu Renjia was helpless, but there was nothing he could do. He wanted to ride on Yi Futian's coattails, but he was worthless. He couldn't keep up with his martial arts, and he couldn't compare with Fairy Yuan in terms of intelligence. It would be a little awkward if he stayed by Zhang Xiaoyao's side. That's good. Zhang Xiaoyao nodded slightly and didn't force him. After all, they met by chance. He directly took out a seal of Dao validation and gave it to Lu Renjia. Lu Renjia took it with trembling hands. Zhang Xiaoyao took out a token again. It was a token that belonged to him, Zhang Xiaoyao. If you are in danger, give me this token and tell them my name. Zhang Xiaoyao's words surprised Lu Renjia. With this relationship, even outlawed sky prides would not dare to make a move on him. Thank you, young master. Lu Renjia bowed 90 degrees, with tears and snot flowing. After that, Zhang Xiaoyao, Fairy Yuan, Tai-Yin Jade Hair, and Bai Ling set off together. Seeing Zhang Xiaoyao and the others leave, the people of Shanqi Holy City sighed. The ancient road of ultimate was going to be turbulent again. At this time, no one noticed. In the dense crowd, a hooded figure looked at Zhang Xiaoyao with a sneer in his eyes. We're finally on our way. The opportunity is here. It's time to inform the others. Zhang Xiaoyao, Boss is going to take your sacred body of the ancient's essence, blood and bones of supremacy. Boss is the one who has accepted the mandate of heaven to take your life, the figure muttered to himself. Then, his figure disappeared into the shadows of the other sky prides. It was extremely strange. Zhang Xiaoyao and the others continued their journey from the 10th checkpoint, Shanqi Ancient Star. There were a total of 13 checkpoints along the way to Tianming Ancient Star, which would take a lot of time. Moreover, the ancient road of ultimate was more strange and dangerous than the Emperor Road. Although it was still not a fatal threat to Zhang Xiaoyao, it would sometimes slow him down. In addition, Jiang Shengyi, Lord Grimm, and the others were also competing on the ancient road of ultimate. They did not deliberately look for Zhang Xiaoyao, as they were unwilling to pass the ancient road of ultimate under Zhang Xiaoyao's protection. Everyone had their own trials. If fate brought them together, they would naturally meet. The other sky prides of the Huangtian mystic realm also began to show their talents on the ancient road of ultimate. For example, sword demon Yi Guchen, who had already set foot on the ancient road of ultimate, rose all the way to the ancient road of ultimate. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, more than a year had passed. Zhun Xiaoyaro and the others were finally close to Tianming Ancient Star. The closer they were to her hometown, the more excited Bai Ling became. On this day, on the starry sky flying ship, Zhun Xiaoyaro suddenly said, "Bai Ling, can you hide?" "Why?" Bai Ling was puzzled. "What do you think the Naga tribe will do if they see you by my side?" Zhun Xiaoyaro asked. Bai Ling was not stupid. She thought for a moment and said, "They might think you're a bad guy." "That's right. Even if you explain, they will still forcibly escort us to Queen Medusa. So, if you can hide, when I enter Tianming Ancient Star, I'll directly put you in a tribe of the Naga tribe and let you return safely." "Wouldn't that be better?" Zhun Xiaoyaro said with a smile. Bai Ling nodded and said, "You're so thoughtful." She increasingly felt that Zhun Xiaoyaro was a rare kind person. Then, Bai Ling's delicate body shook and turned into a small green snake. Zhun Xiaoyaro waved his hand and quietly released the third seal of the Forbidden Immortals. All of Bai Ling's senses were sealed, and she could not know what was happening outside. Zhun Xiaoyaro put the small green snake into his robe. "Young Master Zhun, are you deceiving the little girl?" Fairy Maiden Yuan teased. "How can this be called deceiving?" "I'm protecting her," Zhun Xiaoyaro said calmly. As a trump card, Bai Ling naturally could not be exposed. If the Naga tribe saw it, it would cause a lot of trouble in advance. Zhun Xiaoyaro did not want to be targeted by Queen Medusa before he even reached the Temple of Doom. After hiding Bai Ling, Zhun Xiaoyaro, Fairy Maiden Yuan, and the others also drove the starship into the starfield where Tianming Ancient Star was located. At the same time, in a starry sky near Tianming Ancient Starfield, an incomparably huge ship was traversing the starry sky. There were many powerful auras on it. On the side of the ship, the logo of the Business Alliance of 10,000 Tribes was engraved. This was the slave ship used by the Business Alliance of 10,000 Tribes to capture foreign slaves, and there were powerhouses guarding it. At this moment, on the deck of the ship, an elegant man in green robes was replying to the beautiful woman beside him with a gentle and handsome smile on his face. This man in green was the son of a big shot in the Business Alliance of 10,000 Tribes, and was also a famous giant on Emperor Road. His name was Young Master Fuyun. The woman standing beside him was in a pink dress. Her body was graceful, her waist was slender, and her legs were long and slender. She was an acquaintance of the Huangtian mystic realm, the goddess of the demon god palace, Yang Rumeng. Leisurely literature, let the soul travel. Chapter 621. Previously, Yang Rumeng had used some information to exchange for Zhun Xiaoyao's seal of proving the way. After she had refined it, she had also stepped onto the ancient road of ultimate. However, after stepping onto the ancient road of ultimate, Yang Rumeng realized the cruelty of the ancient road of ultimate. Even though she possessed the demon emperor body, she still felt powerless. She needed to be careful at all times. This made Yang Rumeng, who was proud in her heart, feel a little disappointed for a while. After all, she stood at the top of the younger generation in the Huangtian mystic realm. Now, on the ancient road of ultimate, she was a little dim. However, Yang Rumeng was not discouraged. Instead, she adjusted her state and continued on the road. Halfway through, she also heard about the opportunity in the Temple of Doom, so she wanted to come here to see if she could get some opportunities to transform her strength. Halfway through, she met the slave-catching ship where young Master Fuyun was. They happened to be heading to the ancient Tianming Star to capture the Serpent People slaves. The slave-catching ship was much faster than Yang Rumeng's travel, and there was a guarantee of safety. Therefore, Yang Rumeng boarded the ship along the way. At this moment, young Master Fuyun, although gentle and elegant, was talking to Yang Rumeng. However, from the corner of his eyes, intentionally or unintentionally, he was glancing at Yang Rumeng's delicate body. Especially that pair of slender, snow-white, perfectly round jade legs, smooth as porcelain, tempting him. Young Master Fuyun looked decent on the surface, but in his heart, he was secretly thinking about how to touch those legs. Little did he know that those legs had already been touched by Zhang Xiaoyao. Miss Ru Meng, we are about to reach the ancient Tianming star. When the time comes, Uncle Li and the others will go to capture the Serpent People slaves first, and we can inquire about the news about the Temple of Doom, young Master Fuyun said with a smile. If it was just to capture Serpent People slaves, then young Master Fuyun did not need to come with the ship. He also had a purpose, which was to explore the Temple of Doom. After all, this temple had too many legends related to legendary emperors and even immortals, attracting attention from all directions. This is the Nogga's territory. It won't be easy to search for the Temple of Doom, Yang Rumeng said. She sensed a dark desire mixed within young Master Floating Cloud's eyes. Her heart was disgusted, but it wasn't good for her to flare up. He only wanted to part ways with young Master Fuyun after reaching the ancient heavenly underworld star. Haha. Is Miss Ru Meng at ease? The strongest expert of the Nogga tribe is the Holy Master, Queen Medusa. There are law enforcers patrolling the ancient road from time to time. Queen Medusa didn't dare to attack the prodigies of the ancient road. As for the other Noggas, there aren't many powerful ones. Uncle Li is a Saint King small perfection. He will definitely ensure our safety. Not to mention, my father is also a Saint Lord of the Business Alliance of 10,000 Races. Even if Queen Medusa were to personally appear, she wouldn't dare to do anything to me. As young Master Floating Cloud spoke, his tone carried a wisp of arrogance and pride. His status wasn't low. Not only did he have a holy lord as a father, but he also had power and wealth. In the past, there were also many women who stuck to him like licking dogs. However, what surprised him was that this woman with a perfect appearance and a superb figure in front of him, she didn't change her attitude towards him because of his status. Pretending to be reserved. Don't worry, I will definitely take you down. Young Master Floating Cloud sneered in his heart. He wouldn't take down such a stunning beauty. It was simply a waste of God's gift. But he didn't know. At this moment, Yang Rumeng was thinking of another person in her heart. That person, in terms of strength and identity, in terms of background, it was unknown how many streets away from young Master Floating Cloud. However, he didn't have the slightest bit of arrogance. Just by himself, he had created an eternal legend. I wonder where Zhang Xiaoyao is now? Yang Rumeng thought to herself. Thinking of Zhang Xiaoyao, Yang Rumeng gnashed her teeth. This was the only man who touched her leg and took advantage of her. Most importantly, Zhang Xiaoyao didn't treat her as one of his own, which was a bit infuriating. Yang Rumeng even felt a little wronged. Was she so unworthy of Zhang Xiaoyao's attention? Young Master Floating Cloud naturally didn't know that the beautiful woman beside him, who was like a flower on a high mountain, was secretly angry because of another man's disdain. At this moment, some scattered serpent men appeared in front of them. Some sages on the slave-catching ship took action and began to capture the serpent men. The serpent women were the most popular slaves. Not only the Business Alliance of 10,000 tribes, but many other prodigies and forces from the ancient road would come to the ancient underworld star from time to time to capture the serpent men. In just a few days, the slave-catching ship had already encountered several waves of serpent men. Why do I feel that there are more serpent men? Young Master Floating Cloud was also a little surprised. However, the ancient underworld star was indeed not peaceful recently, and there were often conflicts. But when he thought of the Sage King minor perfection expert on the ship, young Master Floating Cloud's heart calmed down. At this moment, in the starry space ahead, there was a rumbling sound. 3 majestic ancient warships traversed the void. Those are the serpent men's ancient warships. On the slave-catching ship, an expert from the Business Alliance of 10,000 tribes whispered. Logically speaking, the serpent men generally wouldn't send out their ancient warships because they were afraid of the human enforcers on the ancient road. If they did, it meant that something big was about to happen. Is it because of the Temple of Doom? Yang Rumeng's heart skipped a beat as she sensed that the situation wasn't quite right. In front of them, hundreds and thousands of serpent men warriors were densely packed. There were dozens of sages. Among them was a young serpent man with a robust body. His black snake tail was like a dragon's tail and was covered in dense scales. He stood out, and his gaze first fell on Yang Ruming, and he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Serpent men were lustful by nature. A great beauty like Yang Ruming with an excellent figure and slender legs naturally attracted the attention of all the serpent men. "It's you, Mo Tuor, the prodigy of the serpent men." Young Master Floating Cloud's eyes also revealed a hint of fear. This was a prodigy of the serpent men who had quite a reputation. TSK, I wonder how great it would be to train such a beauty as a slave. Mo Tuor's lips curled into a sinister sneer. "How dare you be so presumptuous?" Young Master Floating Cloud reprimanded coldly. Yang Ruming was a woman that he regarded as his exclusive property. How could he allow others to blaspheme her? "What, you can capture the women of the serpent men as slaves, but I can't enslave you in turn?" Mo Tuor sneered. "Fight me if you have the guts." Young Master Floating Cloud said righteously. Mo Tuor gave him a chance to show off in front of a beauty. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Mo Tuor directly attacked and began to fight with young Master Floating Cloud. Magic power surged, and divine power vibrated. After dozens of rounds, young Master Floating Cloud grunted and was knocked back, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. "You want to hook up with a girl with this level of skill? I feel embarrassed for you." Mo Tuor sneered. "Uncle Lee, kill him." Young Master Floating Cloud's face flushed red, and he said angrily, "Mage, a mere serpent man dares to be so presumptuous." The aura of a saint king at small perfection rose, and a middle-aged man in sackcloth stepped out of the cabin with an indifferent expression. However, at the same time, a Saint King's aura erupted from the serpent men's ancient warship, and it even overshadowed Uncle Lee's. That aura was almost at the Supreme Saint level. Perhaps it could be called a half-step Supreme Saint. As the crimson flames soared into the sky, a Naga powerhouse whose body was covered in crimson scales and whose eyes were burning with nether fire appeared. "How is this possible, General Flaming Snake?" Uncle Lee's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes showed shock as he sensed that something was wrong. Young Master Floating Cloud's expression also changed abruptly, with shock. He didn't expect the serpent men to send out such a powerhouse. Yang Ruming's delicate body suddenly tensed up, and her heart jumped to her throat. Because she sensed that General Flaming Snake's gaze fell on her as soon as he appeared. Chapter 622. Among the serpent men, other than the strongest sacred lord, Queen Medusa, there were 4 other powerhouses. They were known as the 4 great generals of the serpent men. They were the Lightning Snake Great General, the Green Snake Great General, the Nether Snake Great General, and the Flame Snake Great General. The Flame Snake Great General was the weakest among the 4 great generals, but he had reached the peak of the Saint King realm. He could be considered a half-step great saint. As soon as the Flame Snake Great General appeared, his eyes locked onto Yang Ruming. To be honest, among the serpent men, other than Queen Medusa, he had never seen such a beautiful woman. Yang Ruming was tall and curvy. Her skin was snow-white and tender. It was as if water could be squeezed out of it. She was even more beautiful and flawless. There was also a kind of inherent arrogance that was enough to arouse a man's desire to conquer her. The Flame Snake Great General naturally couldn't hold himself back. "This woman is mine," the Flame Snake Great General said. His voice was hoarse and low, and it made one's hair stand on end. Goosebumps appeared on Yang Ruming's snow-white skin. She felt extremely nauseous. Among the younger generation, she was a prodigy. However, she couldn't be compared to the older generation's powerhouses. It was even more impossible for her to deal with the Flame Snake Great General. Hearing this, Prince Floating Cloud's expression turned ugly. The matter of the Golden Sun was really bad. It would be difficult to resolve it. "Flame Snake Great General, you dare to leave the ancestral land? Aren't you afraid of being discovered by the human enforcers?" Uncle Lee said coldly with fear in his eyes. The heavenly underworld Ancient Stars Serpent Men tribe was a training ground on the ancient road. To put it bluntly, the Serpent Men tribe was a target for the prodigies of the ancient road to practice. As for Queen Medusa and the other powerhouses, if they dared to interfere and were discovered by the human enforcers, they would definitely suffer. It was also because of this environment that the serpent men tribe was incomparably suppressed and lowly. Mph, you won't be proud for long. Now, I'll start with you. The flame snake great general snorted coldly. He didn't waste any more words and directly attacked Uncle Lee. Was he the strongest person on this slave hunting ship? He had the cultivation of a peak Saint King. Boom. 2 Saint Kings were fighting each other. The fluctuations caused the stars in the area to tremble. Many large stars in the surroundings shattered in an instant, and pitch-black cracks appeared in the void. A battle between Saint Kings? The fluctuations were intense. The experts of the Business Alliance of 10,000 races on the slave boats? They were also engaged in close combat with the Serpent Men warriors. Sir Floating Cloud? Don't even think about escaping. Mo Tuor bit young Master Floating Cloud tightly and began to fight. As for the Business Alliance of 10,000 races? The Serpent Men all had resentment in their hearts. Did this force capture many Serpent Men as slaves? He had long been a thorn in their side. Damn it. These snake men are crazy. Young Master Floating Cloud's complexion was ugly. Yang Rumeng also made her move. She activated her Demon Emperor body and fought with the Naga tribe. However, she could not change anything because the most important thing was to watch the great battle between the Saint Kings. In fact, there was no suspense in the outcome of the battle. A fiery snake general who was half a step into the great saint realm? He was practically suppressing Uncle Lee Hellfire Snake. The flame snake general activated his ultimate move, and a 10,000 jong long hellfire serpent appeared, squeezing the entire starry sky. Hell flames billowing. His aura surged. Go! A shout from the flame snake general. The hellfire serpent carried a torrential amount of nether fire as it surged towards Uncle Lee. A blood-curdling scream rang out. Uncle Lee's skin was charred black and cracked, and the surrounding Dao laws were burned out. He had suffered great injuries. The flame snake general attacked again fiercely. He summoned an 8 jong long fire serpent spear and directly pierced through Uncle Lee's chest. Then, he shook the serpent spear in his hand. Uncle Lee's Saint King body cracked, and blood splattered, spreading throughout the universe. Even his primordial spirit could not escape and was burned to ashes by the flame snake general's hellfire. Seeing this scene, everyone in the Business Alliance of 10,000 clans despaired. Their strongest expert had been killed, and none of them could escape death. No, those women would escape death. However, what greeted them would be worse than death. Seeing this scene, young Master Floating Cloud's eyelids twitched. You have to die too. Mo Tuor charged towards young Master Floating Cloud. Young Master Floating Cloud saw this and gritted his teeth, summoning a talisman. In an instant, vast runes intertwined and fell, forming a resplendent runic magic realm that enveloped young Master Floating Cloud. Come in quickly, young Master Floating Cloud shouted. The remaining people of the Business Alliance of 10,000 clans, as well as Yang Rumeng, all entered the runic magic realm. The flame snake general frowned and pressed down with his palm, but he was unable to break the runic magic realm in a short time. Seeing that the flame snake general was unable to break it, young Master Floating Cloud breathed a sigh of relief and said, "This is a treasure my father left for me. Don't even think about breaking it." His father was a saint lord of the Business Alliance of 10,000 clans. This runic magic realm, ordinary great saints would have to spend a lot of time to break it. I advise you to leave now. Otherwise, when the experts of the Business Alliance of 10,000 clans arrive, you will undoubtedly die. Young Master Floating Cloud sneered. If I gather the other 3 great generals and join forces to break it, how long do you think it will take? The flame snake general's eyes were cold with killing intent. Young Master Floating Cloud was slightly shocked, and his gaze changed. The flame snake general continued, "How about this, seeing that you have a backer behind you, if you kick this woman out, I can let the rest of you leave. If you don't agree, I will immediately gather the other 3 great generals. It won't take 2 hours to break your magic realm." The flame snake general's words caused young Master Floating Cloud's expression to change drastically. On the side, Yang Rumeng's delicate body was even more tense. She bit her red lips, and her charming face was fiendish. The Flame Snake General naturally had his own plans. If he really killed young Master Floating Cloud, it would inevitably cause trouble, and it might even affect Queen Medusa's plan. However, the Flame Snake General didn't want to let go of Yang Ruming, this great beauty, for nothing. This plump little lamb, he must eat it. Young Master Floating Cloud clenched his hands, and his face revealed extreme unwillingness. It wasn't easy to meet such a peerless woman, and he was actually going to give her away for nothing. He was unwilling. However, compared to a beauty, his life was obviously more important. If he lost his life, how could he enjoy a beauty? Making up his mind, young Master Floating Cloud urged the power of the runic magic realm, and directly repelled Yang Ruming. Yang Ruming's charming face was as cold as frost, without the slightest expression. She had never counted on young Master Floating Cloud. However, she didn't expect that he would be so decisive as to sell her out. "I'm sorry, Miss Yu Meng. If there is a chance in the future, this young master will seek justice for you." Young Master Floating Cloud transmitted his voice. He didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. Every man for himself, and the heavens take the hindmost. In the face of life and death, it was normal to be selfish and ruthless. Scram. Yang Ruming coldly spat out a word. With her personality, she would rather die than ask young Master Floating Cloud to save her. "Haha, submit to this general." The Flame Snake General laughed. To be able to obtain such a beautiful woman, his harvest was quite good. Yang Ruming took a deep breath, and her heart was filled with despair. The Flame Snake General wasn't an existence that any younger generation could contend against. Facing him, Yang Ruming couldn't even resist. "So there's still no way?" Yang Ruming bit her lips, and her heart was already filled with the desire to die. She urged her magic power, and her aura began to riot. Yang Ruming would rather explode and die than let her delicate body be defiled by the disgusting Naga race. In front of this general, death is a luxury. The Flame Snake General raised his hand, and vast magic power surged, suppressing Yang Ruming, preventing her from exploding. Yang Ruming was completely desperate. She couldn't imagine what would happen to her next. Just as the Flame Snake General was about to capture Yang Ruming to his side, he suddenly noticed that there was a faint fluctuation coming from the distance. It was a starry sky flying ship, and it was flying into the distance as if there was no one around. "Oh, there are still fish that escaped the net." The Flame Snake General didn't care at all. He could vaguely feel that there were only a few auras in the starry sky flying ship, and the strongest among them was only a peak saint. In front of him, a half-step great saint, they were still ants that he could kill with a wave of his hand. The Flame Snake General waved his hand, and a fire snake surged, bringing with it a temperature that could burn the heavens and destroy the earth, and fell on the starry sky flying ship. The Flame Snake General didn't even look at it, and turned to look at Yang Ruming, with an evil sneer at the corner of his mouth, and was about to grab her. At this moment, a loud explosion suddenly came from the distance. That fire snake actually collapsed in the void. The Flame Snake General was slightly surprised, and turned his head. This move of his should be able to kill a saint without a doubt. Amidst the flames and smoke of the explosion, a calm and gentle voice sounded, "Yang Ruming, I didn't expect to see you here." Hearing this voice, Yang Ruming's delicate body suddenly collapsed, and a roar sounded in her mind, setting off waves. Was she so desperate that her consciousness was in chaos? Why was she hallucinating? Why was the guy who touched her leg, took advantage of her, and refused to admit it, here? Chapter 623. The flames and smoke that filled the air automatically separated, and a white-clothed figure slowly walked over with his hands behind his back. He was shrouded in immortal light, and his temperament was otherworldly. He was like a banished immortal wandering the mortal world, calm and indifferent. Even in the face of such a situation, the peerless figure was still very calm, without the slightest hint of panic. Looking at this figure, Yang Ruming's beautiful eyes suddenly turned sour, and her vision blurred. Grievance, anger, shame, joy, all kinds of emotions, all kinds of complex feelings, rolled in her heart. In such a desperate situation, she met the person who made her teeth itch in the past, but she couldn't help but think of him. Needless to say, that feeling was very complicated. That person is. Young Master Fuyun, who was in the runic magic world, showed a touch of doubt. That mysterious young master could call out Yang Rumeng's name, so he obviously knew her. What made young Master Fuyun a little unhappy was that he clearly saw that when Yang Rumeng looked at the mysterious young master, her eyes were filled with surprise, and then a trace of resentment. When Yang Rumeng treated him, her eyes were always cold, and she kept a certain distance. Could it be that she and that man? Young Master Fuyun's face was not very good. Could it be that the goddess in his heart had already been used by that man? This could be seen from Yang Rumeng's resentful eyes. She was simply like a little resentful woman who had been abandoned. Who cares what relationship he has, he will die today anyway, young Master Fuyun thought in his heart. It was impossible for that mysterious man to escape the hands of the Flame Snake General. Beside him, the rest of the experts of the business alliance of 10,000 clans had a trace of doubt in their eyes. They vaguely thought of someone, but they were not sure. On this side, in addition to Jun Xiaoyao, Fairy Yuan and Tai-Yin Jade Hair also appeared. Half-step Great Sage. Fairy Yuan's beautiful eyes showed a touch of surprise. As Yang Rumeng saw this young girl who was as beautiful as a fairy, her eyes filled with hidden bitterness. This guy, there was no shortage of girls wherever he went. Yang Rumeng, you don't look too good, Jun Xiaoyao chuckled. Seeing this, Yang Rumeng gritted her teeth. She really wanted to bite Jun Xiaoyao. How could he still laugh at a time like this? However, when she thought about the fact that Jun Xiaoyao had shown up to save her, she realized that Jun Xiaoyao had shown up to save her. Yang Rumeng's face turned slightly red. But what she didn't know. Jun Xiaoyao was just passing by. If the Flame Snake General had not casually launched that attack, how could he have noticed them? It was even more impossible for him to stay. You're just a human boy in the Saint Realm. How could you withstand my attack? The Flame Serpent General looked at Jun Xiaoyao. His cultivation level was clearly only at the Sage Great Perfection level. Logically speaking, it should be impossible for him to withstand it. It's just luck. I'm just passing by. Can I leave now? Jun Xiaoyao said lightly. TSK, you're still scared. In the runic magic world, young Master Floating Cloud could not help but snicker. Yang Rumeng then remembered that no matter how strong Jun Xiaoyao was, he was only invincible among the younger generation. However, the Flame Serpent General was not part of the younger generation. He was a half-step Supreme Sage powerhouse. Someone like that. Even if an outlawed Sky Pride encountered him, the outcome would be unpredictable. Hurry up and leave. You're no match for him. Yang Rumeng yelled. Hehe, you want to leave? What do you think? The Flame Serpent General sneered and turned to look at Fairy Maiden Yuan and Tai-Yin Jade Hair, who were beside Jun Xiaoyao. Fairy Maiden Yuan was wearing a bluish-white gauze dress. Her figure was graceful and beautiful, and her legs were long and slender. Her entire person was extraordinarily charming, lovely, and moving. Tai-Yin Jade Hair was in her human form. She also had bright eyes and white teeth. She was so adorable that one would feel pity for her. I'm so lucky today to meet three of them at once. The Flame Serpent General smiled evilly. Fairy Maiden Yuan's gaze was cold, and a murderous intent flashed across her beautiful eyes. She might be seductive and flirtatious when facing Jun Xiaoyao. However, she was as cold as frost when facing others. The Flame Serpent General's gaze made her murderous intent surge. Do you really think you're that great? Jun Xiaoyao tilted his head and said. Even when facing a half-step Supreme Sage like the Flame Serpent General, he still treated him with a condescending attitude. How dare you? Before the Flame Serpent General could get angry, Mo Tuor, the Snake Men's Sky Pride, shouted angrily. He channeled the dharmic powers in his body and attacked. Jun Xiaoyao did not even look at him. With a snap of his fingers, Sword Chi shot up into the sky and swept through the galaxy. The Sword Chi of the immortal slaughtering sword technique spread out like a long river and instantly drowned Mo Tuor. Splat. Blood spurted out. Mo Tuor's body was instantly torn into pieces and then minced by the Sword Chi. His primordial spirit was also destroyed. In the blink of an eye, a Sky Pride had fallen. This scene was so sudden that even the Flame Serpent General could not react in time. Even if Mo Tuor could withstand 1 or 2 attacks, he could intervene. However, there was no chance. Mo Tuor was instantly killed in one move. This. Young Master Fu Yun's expression was also a little sluggish. Mo Tuor's strength was above his, and he was almost suppressing a giant sky pride like him. However, he was now killed by the mysterious young man with a snap of his fingers. An outlawed sky pride? Young Master Fu Yun was surprised. That's right, it really is that person. Some of the masters from the Business Alliance of 10,000 Tribes exclaimed. Who is he? Young Master Fu Yun asked subconsciously. Don't you know, young master? That young man should be the legendary Eternal Taboo, the son of God of the Jun family, said a master from the Business Alliance of 10,000 Tribes. What, he's the Eternal Taboo, Jun Xiaoyaro? Young Master Fu Yun's eyes trembled, and he was extremely shocked. This was definitely a lofty figure who had created countless legends. No wonder Yang Rumeng had that expression. Young Master Fu Yun's tone was sour and jealous. If it was Jun Xiaoyaro, then Yang Rumeng's attitude was reasonable. Goddesses were only aloof to ordinary people. Even goddesses could only kneel and lick the boots of those with lofty statuses. So what if it's Jun Xiaoyaro? Even if he's heaven-defying, it'll be good enough if he can escape from an ordinary Sage King. But this Flaming Snake General is a full-fledged Sage King, and has even reached the half-step Supreme Sage realm. This is not something the younger generation can compete with, young Master Fu Yun thought to himself. He was actually hoping that Flaming Snake General could kill Jun Xiaoyaro. After all, Jun Xiaoyaro was too outstanding, and he was extremely envious. Kid, how dare you kill in front of me, you're courting death. Flaming Snake General raised his hand, and death blaze surged. The fire of law overflowed, turning into a giant hand of death blaze, and pressed down on Jun Xiaoyaro. The giant hand was like a burning sky, and it fell down. It could be said that no sage could withstand this attack, and their body would be smashed and burned to ashes. Jun Xiaoyaro, be careful. Yang Rumeng couldn't help but change her expression. Young Master Jun. Fairy Maiden Yuan's pretty face also changed, and Taiyin Jade Hair also exclaimed. This wasn't a fight between peers, but the older generation's powerhouses using their realm to suppress others. Who in the younger generation could stop the cultivation of a half-step Supreme Sage? Get out of the way. Jun Xiaoyaro pushed Fairy Maiden Yuan and Taiyin Jade Hair away with one hand. There was no fear in his eyes, but a hint of fighting spirit. It was boring to be invincible among the younger generation for a long time. He was very curious whether he could fight with the older generation's powerhouses now. Chapter 624. Jun Xiaoyaro was not blindly confident. One had to know that he had never really used his full strength. Even in the Emperor Road battle with Yi Guchen, Jun Xiaoyaro had hidden a lot and did not use much of his strength at all. It could even be said that no one in the younger generation could make Jun Xiaoyaro use his full strength. Jun Xiaoyao's strength had exceeded the limit of his age. After condensing a total of 9 strands of immortal qi, Jun Xiaoyao's strength had reached a certain extreme. He was very curious about how strong his true strength was now. The Flame Snake General's hellfire palm fell and covered Jun Xiaoyaro. The whole place was dead silent. Yang Rumeng's beautiful eyes widened, and her eyes trembled. Master. Taiyin Jade Hair called out anxiously. Even Fairy Yuan's heart was beating violently. If they were facing ordinary sky prides, they did not have to worry at all. They just had to sit and watch Jun Xiaoyaro destroy the enemy. But this time, Jun Xiaoyao's opponent was a half-step Great Sage. The difference between a full-fledged saint and a half-step Great Sage was like heaven and earth. Hair, as expected, even if it's an eternal taboo, in the face of absolute strength, everything is empty talk. Young Master Fu Yun sneered. He had wanted to see Jun Xiaoyaro fall with his own eyes before. Now that he had seen it, he could leave safely. Let's go, they are hopeless. Young Master Fu Yun controlled the runic magic boundary and turned to leave. However, the other members of the Business Alliance of 10,000 races in the runic magic boundary were dumbfounded, frozen in place. How did you? Young Master Fuyun raised his eyebrows. No, this is absolutely impossible. How could it be? All the members of the Business Alliance of 10,000 Races seemed to have seen the most incredible scene. Everyone's face was full of shock. Young Master Fuyun was suspicious. When he turned around to look, his body suddenly froze, his eyes widened, and he was shocked speechless. Zhang Xiaoyao's body shone with golden light, and the power of laws surged. An immemorial divine elephant's true form burst out from behind him. It threw its head back and roared, causing the sun, moon, and stars to fall from the sky. The palm of hellfire was shattered by the primordial godmammoth's true form. Zhang Xiaoyao himself was still standing with his hands behind his back, his white robes fluttering in the wind. He was incomparably calm. This scene was beyond everyone's expectations. Even the Naga tribe was dumbfounded. They were so shocked that their divine souls trembled. A perfected saint. He had actually blocked the attack of a half-step great sage. And the most ridiculous thing was, he didn't seem to be in a sorry state at all. He was still as transcendent as ever. How could this be? The Flame Snake General was also stunned. At a certain moment, he even suspected that the young man in front of him was pretending to be weak and was actually hiding his cultivation. But no matter how much he tried to sense it, Zhang Xiaoyao was indeed only a sage at the great perfection level. This was simply inconceivable. The heavenly maiden kite and the Tai-yin jade hair both breathed a sigh of relief. Yang Rumeng couldn't help but show surprise in her eyes after a brief moment of astonishment. Zhang Xiaoyao? He was always the one who created miracles. You can actually block my attack. The Flame Snake General didn't panic after his attack failed. He just felt a little embarrassed. What if the other three generals knew? He couldn't kill a saint with one move? They would probably laugh their heads off. Cultivation level doesn't represent true strength. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes were deep. Immortal will surged on his body, and golden light shone brightly. Zhang Xiaoyao wasn't stupid. Facing a half-step great sage, he still needed to be cautious. He couldn't be careless. Zhang Xiaoyao activated the immortal body of the great all-embracing heaven. His bones shone with golden light, and ancient and mysterious runes flowed on them. An immortal and indestructible will flowed. At the same time, Zhang Xiaoyao also strengthened the strength of the hell-crushing divine elephant with the power of 100,000 divine elephants. The power of 100,000 ancient divine elephants combined was far more than 10 billion pounds of divine force. It could break space and shatter stars with a single hand. Again. This time, Zhang Xiaoyao actually took the initiative to attack. The Kuan-Peng infinite divine fist blasted out, and the runes in the void were as vast as the ocean. The power of laws intertwined and turned into a Kuan-Peng leaping into the sea. As the fist blasted out, the void in front of it collapsed. How dare you? Seeing Zhang Xiaoyao take the initiative to attack him, the Flame Snake General's face darkened, and he shouted coldly. This was undoubtedly contempt for him, a half-step great sage. The Flame Snake General also attacked with his palm. Death flames surged into the sky, and the laws surged. The difference between a Saint King and a saint was that they had reached an extremely profound level in the use of law runes. Dao runes intertwined with every move. That level of proficiency and power was far from what a saint could compare to. The Flame Snake General's palm collided with Zhang Xiaoyao's Kuan-Peng divine fist. Bang! It was as if a clap of thunder had exploded in the chaos. The power of laws spread like ripples. Just the aftershock alone could injure a saint. Everyone around retreated, fearing that they would be affected. In the violent collision, Zhang Xiaoyao's white clothes fluttered. He felt the powerful power of laws of a half-step great sage surging toward him. If it were an ordinary saint, his body would have been crushed to pieces long ago, and not even his bones would be left. However, Zhang Xiaoyao's physique was monstrous. The sacred body of the ancients, the Deluo immortal body, had also been tempered by the qi of all creation, and had the potential to become an emperor with a physical body. This level of physical body was unparalleled since ancient times. Not to mention a half-step great sage, even a true great sage would not be able to crush Zhang Xiaoyao's physical body. On the other hand, The Flame Serpent General felt a terrifying and boundless divine power smashing toward him. It was as if 100,000 archaic divine elephants were crushing him. It could be said that even a great sage who specialized in physical body cultivation could not have the divine power of Jun Xiaoyao in terms of strength alone. After the collision, Jun Xiaoyao's figure retreated a few steps. The Flame Snake General retreated dozens of steps. His palm was numb and trembling slightly. There were faint cracks in his arm bones. It could be said that if they were in the same realm, the Flame Snake General had no doubt that half of his body would be crushed. Where did this little monster come from? Is he the descendant of the true dragon, the ancient queen? The Flame Snake General was a little shocked. This blow also stunned everyone. Jun Xiaoyao was actually tied with a half-step great sage. Even the Flame Snake General was slightly weaker. This was outrageous. Young Master Floating Cloud's mind buzzed. His whole body seemed to be petrified and lost his soul. If this scene were to spread, it would be enough to shock the entire ancient road. Not bad. You can keep your physical body intact after taking a punch from me. As expected of a half-step great sage. Jun Xiaoyao smiled slightly, and his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. It was refreshing to hit a punching bag that could withstand a beating. Otherwise, it would be boring to kill with one punch. You little monster, do you really think I can't subdue you? The Flame Snake General's face was gloomy. How could he not see that Jun Xiaoyao was using him as a whetstone? The killing intent in the Flame Snake General's heart was bursting. No matter what Jun Xiaoyao's background was, he had to kill him. Sky Snake Secret Manual. The Flame Snake General activated the strongest technique cultivated by the Snake Men. He wanted to display the true power of a half-step great sage and kill Jun Xiaoyao in an instant. Behind him, countless fire snakes emerged. His magic power imprisoned the surrounding stars, turning them into a furnace of hell. This was one of his terrifying abilities, the Myriad Snake World Incineration Furnace. If a Saint King expert fell into it, they would die without a doubt. Using this move to kill a saint was like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Chapter 625. Tens of thousands of fire snakes rushed out from behind the Flame Snake General. They intertwined with each other and turned into a furnace that could burn the world. This was an extreme move. Countless scarlet symbols curled about in flames as they engraved themselves into the heavens. The laws intertwined and imprisoned Jun Xiaoyao within. What surprised the Flame Snake General was that Jun Xiaoyao had no intention of dodging at all. On the surface of his body, a blood-red divine qi mixed with gold appeared. It was the divine qi of the physical body. This move is just scratching an itch. Jun Xiaoyao chuckled. His body was branded with countless runes. His qi and blood were vigorous, like a blood dragon that pierced through the galaxy. At the same time, there was an immortal and indestructible will flowing. The sacred body of the ancients, the Deluo immortal celestial body, and the divine qi of the physical body. Jun Xiaoyao's body was almost immortal. Wanting to incinerate his fleshly body with this move was undoubtedly a fantasy. The Flame Snake General's face became even more gloomy. Jun Xiaoyao's body was like the shell of a black tortoise that could not be damaged at all. Even though he was an entire realm higher than Jun Xiaoyao, the Flame Snake General still found it difficult to deal with. Next, it's my turn. On the surface of Jun Xiaoyao's body, another divine qi appeared. It was filled with the will of reincarnation. It was the reincarnation divine qi. Jun Xiaoyao punched out. His arm was wrapped with the reincarnation divine qi, and he performed the 6 paths of reincarnation fist at the same time. With the support of the reincarnation divine qi, the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist was even stronger. It was as if there were 6 worlds of reincarnation that were blasted out with his fist. All living things in the world would be pulled into the cycle of reincarnation. This punch caused the void to explode. The snake incinerating cauldron was directly blown apart by Jun Xiaoyao's punch. Everyone around felt their hearts tremble when they saw how ferocious and straightforward Jun Xiaoyao's move was. Jun Xiaoyao's combat strength had far exceeded his own realm. He's stronger than before. Yang Rumeng was also a little stunned. Then, a look of joy appeared on her face. She saw hope. Jun Xiaoyaro executed the Kuan Peng steps and arrived in front of the Flame Snake General in an instant. The 6 paths of reincarnation fist blasted out fiercely and the remaining shockwaves shattered countless stars in the surroundings. The sacred body of the ancients was good at close combat, so Jun Xiaoyaro would naturally give full play to his strengths. The Flame Snake Great General also made his move. It had to be said that as a half-step great sage, the Flame Serpent General's strength was without a doubt. This was Jun Xiaoyao's first time. It was impossible to crush the enemy with absolute superiority. Of course, the two of them were not from the same generation, so there was no comparison at all. You must know. If it were any other young prodigy, let alone fighting against the Flame Serpent General, being able to withstand 2 or 3 moves from him was already considered not bad. Do you really think I can't deal with you? Seeing Jun Xiaoyaro being so arrogant, he actually took the initiative to beat him up. The Flame Snake General was enraged. Did he use his natal supreme weapon, the Fire Serpent Spear? It stabbed towards Jun Xiaoyaro. The Fire Serpent Spear seemed to have turned into a world-burning fire serpent, and countless laws swept over like a wave. Jun Xiaoyaro also took out the Myriad Qi Cauldron. The 3-legged, 2-handled bronze cauldron carried a desolate aura, and the myriad qi within the cauldron rolled and surrendered. That's myriad qi. The Flame Snake Great General's eyes flashed. It was the rarest thing in the world. It was one of the most extreme energies, whether it was used to temper the body or cultivate. It was an excellent material for refining weapons. The Flame Snake Great General smiled, thinking that Jun Xiaoyaro was really his god of fortune. Not only did he give him beauties, but now he even wanted to give him treasures. You want my myriad qi cauldron? Do you think you can take it? Seeing the greed in the Flame Snake Great General's eyes, Jun Xiaoyaro said coldly. Countless Tao patterns flowed on the myriad qi cauldron, and the divine sound of ancient ancestors worshipping and offering sacrifices bloomed. The cauldron collided with the Fire Serpent Spear, bursting out a shocking sound and sparks. Some cracks actually appeared on the surface of the Fire Serpent Spear. Because it was a life weapon, the Fire Serpent Spear was damaged. The Flame Snake Great General's body also shook, and his aura was slightly chaotic. However, his eyes shone even brighter, and they were filled with greed. This cauldron has the qualifications to be an emperor weapon. Thinking of this, the Flame Snake Great General attacked again. Divine chains of laws burst out from his body, wanting to completely confine and strangle Jun Xiaoyaro. After reaching the Saint King realm, one could condense divine chains of laws with a raise of their hand, penetrate the void, and kill all enemies. Jun Xiaoyaro activated the Kuanpeng Great Mystique, the Thunder Emperor Great Mystique, and 6 other mystiques to control the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. At the same time, a total of 6 strands of immortal qi appeared on the surface of his body, like 6 true dragons, surrounding and protecting his sacred body. 6 strands of immortal qi. Young Master Fuyun and the others were dumbfounded. Even if he was a giant prodigy, he had only condensed 2 strands of immortal qi so far. 6 strands of immortal qi, it was simply unimaginable. 6 strands of immortal qi, he is indeed a little monster. The Flame Snake Great General's gaze also focused, and there was still lingering fear in his heart. If he didn't rely on his age and high cultivation level, he wouldn't be a match for Jun Xiaoyaro at all. Jun Xiaoyaro used the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to control 6 types of mystiques and augment them with 6 strands of immortal qi. The power was simply enough to shatter the heavens and the universe. An ancient planet with life could be punched through by Jun Xiaoyaro with one punch. Rumble. All the divine chains of laws were destroyed by Jun Xiaoyao's punch. Then, Jun Xiaoyao's other hand activated the 3rd seal of the Immortal Prohibition Seal. The surrounding void flowed with sealing runes, turning into a cage. You want to imprison me? You are too naive, the Flame Snake Great General said coldly. In a moment, he would be able to break out of the seal. A moment is enough. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled slightly. For some reason, the Flame Snake Great General's heart skipped a beat when he saw Jun Xiaoyao's smile and felt that something was wrong. Jun Xiaoyaro activated the Myriad Qi Cauldron, and the Myriad Qi in the cauldron rolled. A terrifying force that could crush the heavens erupted from the myriad chi cauldron and directly suppressed the flame snake great general. Then, Jun Xiaoyaro activated the sacred body phenomenon. The 1,000 saints worshipping and the immortal king descends to the 9 heavens were activated at the same time. Thousands of sacred shadows appeared in the surrounding void and worshipped Jun Xiaoyaro. Behind Jun Xiaoyaro, an incomparably majestic figure of a supreme immortal king whose aura soared through the galaxy appeared. The will of life and death flowed in Jun Xiaoyao's hands and 2 incomparably huge Dharma wheels condensed in the void. As the Dharma wheels spun, it was as if billions of beings were dying and being reborn. Kill. A shocking sound came from Jun Xiaoyao's hands as he used many techniques at the same time. The flame snake great general also felt a life and death crisis. He looked up to the sky and laughed, fully unleashing the strength of a half-step supreme saint. But there was the 3rd seal around him. Although it couldn't completely trap him, it was enough to delay him for 15 minutes. The myriad chi cauldron with hundreds of millions of tons of power fell. The flame snake great general's fire snake spear was almost instantly crushed into pieces of metal. Half of the flame snake great general's body was also crushed and blood spurted out. The intense pain made the flame snake great general's eyes bulge and he let out a long cry that shook the galaxy. Jun Xiaoyao's face was as cold as ice as he activated the wheel of life and death. At this moment, he was like a supreme immortal king who ruled over life and death. The 1,000 saints worshipping phenomenon could suppress the flame snake great general's energy and strength. The immortal king descends to the 9 heavens was strengthened by an extreme Dao art, which made Jun Xiaoyao's wheel of life and death several times more powerful. In addition, there were 6 streams of deity qi. This move was enough to destroy the world. The flame snake great general was already half dead after being shocked by the myriad chi cauldron. Under this move, his physical body was completely shattered, exploding into a mist of blood. A flame snake great general's primordial spirit let out a sharp cry and tried to escape. Jun Xiaoyaro activated the 3 lives primordial spirit, and terrifying soul power spread out. A virocana formed entirely of primordial spirit power came crashing down. Boom! The flame snake great general's primordial spirit was terrified and let out a sharp cry. But it was still directly destroyed by the virocana. The half-step supreme saint flame snake great general had fallen. Chapter 626. In the starry sky, blood mist was drifting. Some incomplete law divine chains were dimming and losing their brilliance. That was the law power that belonged to the flame snake general, and it was beginning to dissipate from the world. It also represented the complete death of a half-step great sage. Above the stars, only Jun Xiaoyaro stood with his hands behind his back. His white robes were still spotless, and he still looked peerless. There were no obvious traces of injuries on his body. Jun Xiaoyao's handsome face was as calm as an ancient well. There was no complacency, and he was very calm. But what he had done was enough to shake the entire ancient ultimate road. As a sage, he had defied the heavens and killed a half-step great sage. This was absolutely shocking. Everyone present, whether it was Fairy Yuan, Yang Ruming, or Taiyin Jade Hair, Young Master Floating Cloud, the experts of the Commerce Alliance, or the Naga race. They were all stunned and stupefied, unable to make a sound for a long time. The entire starry sky was dead silent. After a long time, there was a commotion from the Naga race. Those Naga warriors were incomparably shocked, and they were so frightened that their scalps went numb. That handsome figure in white was no different from a demon in their eyes. He had killed Mo Tuor with a snap of his fingers, and now he had even killed the flame snake general. He's not human. Monster, he's a monster. Thousands of Naga warriors were so frightened that their minds were about to collapse. The invincible flame snake general in their hearts had actually died at the hands of a young man. This simply overturned their view of the strong. Looking at those fleeing Naga, Jun Xiaoyaro casually flicked his finger, and sword qi burst forth. The thousands of serpent men warriors were all killed within a few breaths. If Bai Ling saw that the great philanthropist in her heart had casually slaughtered her people, who knew how she would feel? Unfortunately, Bai Ling's perception was sealed by Jun Xiaoyao's 3rd seal, and it was impossible for her to detect the outside world. Eternal taboo, heaven-defying slaying a half-step great sage. Fairy Yuan's chest rose and fell, and she was also shocked. An anomaly was an anomaly, and it could not be understood by common sense. Young master, you're too awesome. The tie-in jade hair was so excited that it jumped 3 feet into the air. Even its rabbit ears were erect. Jun Xiaoyaro was so powerful that it would be easy for him to deal with the 10 princes of Jinwu. In Yang Rumeng's beautiful eyes. Similarly, they couldn't help but feel amazed. Jun Xiaoyao's heaven-defying performance was simply indescribable. And on the other side, Sir Floating Cloud and the others were already silent. Crestfallen, he prepared to leave quietly. Where do you want to go? Jun Xiaoyaro looked at them indifferently. He was not deaf. Young Master Floating Cloud's mocking words from before. It wasn't that he didn't hear it. What happened to you before? Can you tell me? Jun Xiaoyaro turned to look at Yang Rumeng. Yang Rumeng also gave a simple summary of what had happened before, including the matter of young Master Floating Cloud kicking her out. What's the point of keeping such a person alive? After Jun Xiaoyaro heard what he said, with a casual outstretched palm, 6 strands of immortal qi wrapped around it. It directly pressed down on young Master Floating Cloud. That runic magic boundary that was enough to resist the Flame Snake General. But it couldn't block Jun Xiaoyao's attack. The entire runic magic boundary was obliterated by Jun Xiaoyao's palm. Jun Xiaoyao? Wait, my father is. Young Master Floating Cloud's face was filled with horror as he cried out involuntarily. Who cares who your father is? Jun Xiaoyao slapped down with his palm. Young Master Floating Cloud's body and primordial spirit was smashed into bloody foam. The other experts of the business alliance of 10,000 clans around were all trembling. Jun Xiaoyaro killed the son of a big shot of the business alliance of 10,000 clans? He didn't even blink. They were afraid that Jun Xiaoyaro would also silence them. You guys go, just say that this person was killed by me, Jun Xiaoyaro said indifferently. Young Master Jun saved our lives. Can't we be grateful? We won't tell anyone. One of the experts of the business alliance of 10,000 clans cupped his hands and said. They all had a tacit understanding to say that young Master Floating Cloud was killed by the Naga tribe. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't comment. He didn't even care about the entire business alliance of 10,000 clans. He wouldn't care about the people behind young Master Floating Cloud. The experts of the business alliance of 10,000 clans thanked him profusely and left. Jun Xiaoyaro turned to Yang Rumeng and said, let's get on the ship and talk. Yang Rumeng nodded slightly. For some reason, she looked at Jun Xiaoyaro and blushed. The group boarded the ship and continued to sail toward the ancient underworld star. On the other side, the other 3 generals of the Naga tribe all sensed that the Flame Snake General had died. The Flame Snake General's aura is gone. Who killed him? Could it be the executors of the ancient road? Impossible. We have spies around the ancient underworld star system. The executors of the ancient underworld star system couldn't have come here in a short time. Could it be one of those geniuses who came here to train? How is that possible? Unless the Flame Snake General was ambushed. That's possible. Forget it. Right now, the Queen's plan is more important. Most of those geniuses from the ancient road must have been attracted by the Temple of Doom. That place will be their burial ground. Powerful divine wills conversed in the void. Because of the Temple of Doom, the entire ancient underworld star system was very lively. Many geniuses from the ancient road, as well as other factions, and even races from other ancient planets, had come. They had only one goal in mind, and that was the Temple of Doom. Of course, with so many invaders, it was only natural that they would come into conflict with the Naga tribe. In another planetary system, a group of human geniuses from the ancient road was fighting a bloody battle with the Naga warriors. At that moment, Buddhist light shone in the distance, and a young monk sitting cross-legged on a jade-white lion leisurely approached. He was very handsome and dignified, with golden Buddhist rings behind his head that emanated an aura of great light, great wisdom, and great compassion. Great samsara Zen light. A ring of golden Buddhist light spread out from between the young monk's eyebrows. The Naga tribe members who were bloodthirsty stopped what they were doing, and their expressions became wooden. Then, they became calm and peaceful. It's the Western sect's taboo disciple, Brahma. Many geniuses could not help but exclaim when they saw the young monk. He was definitely an extremely powerful existence among the taboo disciples. Brahma's expression was calm as he looked at the ancient underworld star in the distance. The Temple of Doom has great karma and great opportunities, Brahma muttered. Brahma muttered to himself as he rode the jade white lion away. On the other side, an ancient warship was crossing the battlefield in the ancient underworld star system. A red-clothed man with a powerful aura was standing on it. His hair fluttered in the wind, and his posture was vigorous. The most eye-catching thing was that his right arm was actually made of metal. It had been refined into a supreme artifact. Lord Saint, we're not far from the ancient underworld star. A follower cupped his hands respectfully. The fortuitous opportunity in the Temple of Doom is mine. Also, I heard that Jun Xiaoyaro might come. The disciple of the Baron sect of the Gulan sect died because of him. We still have to settle the score, the red-clothed man murmured. He was the saint of the Gulan sect. The Gulan sect had 8 sects: Heaven, Earth, Xian, Huang, Yu, Ju, Hong, and Huang. The sect in the Huangtian mystic realm was only the Baron sect of the 8 sects of the Gulan sect. The disciple of the sect was only the Baron sect's saint. The red-clothed man in front of him was the saint of the Hong sect. In another dark part of the starry sky, 4 black-robed figures appeared. We just need to go to the Temple of Doom and wait for him. Jun Xiaoyaro will come. The fact that the 4 of us have to work together to ambush him is a show of strength for Jun Xiaoyaro. Once our boss refines the supreme bone and the sacred body of the ancients, no one in the 9 heavens mystic realm will be our match. 4 sinister snake-like voices laughed coldly and then disappeared into the void. In the starry sky, a magnificent crystal flying ship was traveling. What was strange was that the surrounding Naga tribe did not attack the flying ship when they saw it coming from the outside world. 2 figures stood on the flying ship. One of them was a charming woman in a red dress. She was Hu Qingqing. Beside her stood a young man with a valiant appearance. The young man's face was as 3-dimensional as a sculpture. His hair was sparkling like crystals. The most bizarre thing was that his body seemed to be made of flesh and blood, but it also seemed to be made of jade. It was glowing like an indestructible treasure. Around him, 9 vortexes appeared in the void, continuously absorbing the essence of the world. This person did not need to cultivate deliberately. The 9 vortexes were constantly absorbing the essence of the world. His aura was also rising slightly at every moment. He was like a child blessed by the heavens. He was the innate sacred spirit from the Sacred Spirit Island, known to be invincible among her peers, Mo Jinyu. Chapter 627. At this moment, Mo Jinyu, the innate Holy Spirit of the Holy Spirit Island, had a cold and indifferent expression on his face. I'd like to see if Jun Xiaoyaro dares to come to the Temple of Doom. Mo Jinyu's tone was very cold. Jun Xiaoyaro had killed his follower, the sky-reaching rock spirit, and refined it in front of everyone at the auction. He did not take him seriously at all. Even though Jun Xiaoyaro had a powerful background and was very powerful, he was still a nobody. However, Mo Jinyu did not care. He came from the Holy Spirit Island, an immortal power that could not be offended. In addition, the Holy Spirit tribe was blessed by the heavens. Every one of them was invincible among their peers. Therefore, Mo Jinyu was not afraid of Jun Xiaoyaro. He even had the intention to settle the score with him. With the Holy Spirit tribe's invincibility among their peers, it would not be difficult for young Master Mo to deal with Jun Xiaoyaro. Hu Qingqing smiled and flattered him. She did not think that Mo Jinyu could easily deal with Jun Xiaoyaro. However, she still had to say what she had to say. Not to mention that Jun Xiaoyaro is a great perfection saint. Even if he is a saint king, I would not care. With my current strength, even if I face a late saint king expert, I can still escape easily. Mo Jinyu's tone was calm, but there was a hint of arrogance in it. After reaching the saint stage, it was very difficult to fight someone of a higher level. However, the Holy Spirit tribe could do it. Hearing this, Hu Qingqing took a deep breath. Her full breasts rose and fell. She exclaimed, With young Master Mo's cultivation at the Great Perfection Saint stage, you can actually escape from a late-stage Saint King. As expected of the Holy Spirit tribe. Hearing Hu Qingqing's flattery, Mo Jinyu smiled faintly and did not say anything. However, if they knew that Jun Xiaoyaro had killed the half-step Great Saint Flaming Snake General, what would their expressions be then? That's right, the Naga tribe didn't seem to be attacking us. Hu Qingqing discovered something else. Our Holy Spirit race doesn't have any grudges with the Snake Men race. The Snake Men race wouldn't dare to provoke us, Mo Jinyu said. The Naga tribe had a deep grudge against the human tribe and other races. They would attack the human tribe whenever they saw them. However, they didn't have any grudges with the Holy Spirit clan, so they didn't dare to provoke them. Choosing young Master Mo was indeed the best decision I've ever made. Hu Qingqing smiled sweetly. Now, she felt that choosing Mo Jinyu was not a bad choice. At the very least, he wouldn't be stopped on his way to the Temple of Doom. She believed that Jun Xiaoyaro and Fairy Yuan would be attacked before they even reached the Temple of Doom. However, that was indeed the case. The starship that Jun Xiaoyaro and the others were on was indeed attacked a few times when they were heading to the Temple of Doom on the ancient heavenly underworld star. However, Jun Xiaoyaro was there. He didn't even show himself. All he did was set up a killing formation outside the flying boat. All the attacking Nagas were killed instantly. Jun Xiaoyaro and the others were sitting leisurely in the starship. Thank you so much for this. Yang Ruming looked at Jun Xiaoyaro and said sincerely. She really couldn't imagine what would have happened to her if she hadn't met Jun Xiaoyaro. It's okay, Jun Xiaoyaro said. He and Yang Ruming weren't very close, but they weren't strangers after a few exchanges. It was purely a coincidence that he helped her this time. If the Flame Snake General hadn't attacked the starship that Jun Xiaoyaro was on, perhaps Jun Xiaoyaro wouldn't have noticed Yang Ruming at all. No matter what, I owe you one, Yang Ruming said. Oh, then what are you going to pay me back with? Jun Xiaoyaro asked casually as he sat on the armchair. Hearing this, Yang Ruming seemed to have thought of something. A faint blush suddenly appeared on her beautiful and perfect face. Then, she suddenly moved. She twisted her waist and swept her leg towards Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro raised his hand in an instant and grabbed Yang Yu Meng's delicate calf. He said with a hint of surprise, "What are you? Do you still remember the first time we met?" Yang Ruming suddenly asked faintly. Jun Xiaoyaro naturally remembered. That was in the lower realms. They were still on opposite sides. Jun Xiaoyaro had done the same thing back then, grabbing her calf and asking her what her true form was. At that time, Yang Ruming still thought that Jun Xiaoyaro was a devil. Who would have thought that the two of them would have such a relationship with each other as time passed? Is it enough to repay me with my body? Yang Ruming suddenly bit her plump and moist red lips. It was unknown whether she was serious or just joking. Jun Xiaoyaro was stunned. Then, he smiled and shook his head. To be honest, it's not very attractive. You. Yang Ruming blushed. Then, she charmingly rolled her eyes at Jun Xiaoyaro. You wish. I was just joking. Don't take it seriously. Although Yang Ruming said so, a trace of undetectable sadness flashed in her eyes. Jun Xiaoyaro saw this and did not say anything. Instead, he pinched Yang Ruming's leg and smiled faintly. By the way, I've always had a question. What is your true form? This question, Yang Yu Meng had never answered him. Asking the true form of a demon was like asking a girl's age. It was a taboo. With such a pair of slender and beautiful legs, your true form can't be a crane, right? Jun Xiaoyaro guessed. Yang Ruming glared at Jun Xiaoyaro and said coquettishly, "You're the crane. My true form is the Skydream Bewildering Butterfly." Oh! Jun Xiaoyaro revealed a trace of surprise. He had heard of the Skydream Bewildering Butterfly. It was an extremely powerful creature. It was rumored that in ancient times, there was a Skydream Bewildering Butterfly. With a flap of its wings, all the creatures in the entire ancient planet of life fell into an illusion, unable to extricate themselves. This was definitely an extremely powerful creature that controlled the path of illusion. It was no wonder that Yang Ruming's name had the word dream in it. If the Skydream Bewildering Butterfly matured, It would definitely be an extremely powerful demon emperor. Thinking about it this way, it was understandable that Yang Rumeng had a demon emperor body. But why do I feel that you haven't manifested the Sky Dream Bewildering Butterfly's ability? Jun Xiaoyaro was puzzled. That's because I haven't fully awakened. I need an extremely powerful bloodline as a primer, Yang Rumeng said truthfully. Then, she glanced at Jun Xiaoyaro and said, "Why don't you give me a few drops of blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients?" "You're thinking too much," Jun Xiaoyaro said decisively. The blood essence of the sacred body of the ancients was not cabbage. Jun Xiaoyaro condensed it would be harmful to his body. The blood essence he obtained from the auction was also useful to him. There was no way he would give it to Yang Rumeng. However, after knowing that Yang Rumeng's true form was the Sky Dream Bewildering Butterfly, Jun Xiaoyaro had the intention to rope her in. "Do you want to abandon the Demon God Palace and join my Emperor's court?" Jun Xiaoyaro asked. "If you can conquer the little demon empress, the entire Demon God Palace can join your Emperor's court," Yang Rumeng said. Then, she took a deep look at Jun Xiaoyaro and said, "Of course, if you can help me find an extremely powerful bloodline to awaken, it's not impossible for me to join." Her original intention wasn't to join the Emperor's court. She also didn't want to obtain an extremely powerful bloodline as a primer. Instead, she wanted to be closer to this man that made her angry but also made her unable to let go. Chapter 628. After hearing Yang Rumeng's words, Jun Xiaoyaro thought for a moment and nodded slightly. Okay. Although he couldn't give the sacred body of the ancient's blood essence to Yang Rumeng. But don't forget that Bai Ling's bloodline was also the most powerful bloodline. Jun Xiaoyaro figured that the ancient bloodline was definitely above that of a quasi-emperor. Using this bloodline to awaken Yang Rumeng was enough. Of course, Jun Xiaoyaro wouldn't extract Bai Ling's bloodline. He wasn't that crazy. Jun Xiaoyaro was thinking about the secrets of the Temple of Doom. A few days later, the starship that Jun Xiaoyaro and the others were on finally arrived at the ancient underworld star. Looking around, the entire ancient underworld star was dark blue. This was the ancestral planet of the Naga tribe on the ancient road. Jun Xiaoyaro and the others left the starship and looked at the ancient planet. "Something's not right," Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. He could see that many geniuses from the ancient road and various forces had come to the ancient underworld star to get a share of the pie. But the other three generals of the Naga tribe didn't appear. Only the Naga tribe warriors were fighting with the geniuses. In addition, Jun Xiaoyaro could also feel that there was a very scary aura in the direction of the Temple of Doom. It reminded him of a strange energy that he had come into contact with before. Anyway, let's go to the Temple of Doom first. Jun Xiaoyaro, Tian Naiyu Yuan, Yang Ruyu, and Taiyin Jade Hair landed on the ancient underworld star. On the ancient underworld star, on a vast and desolate continent. There was a continuous stretch of temples in the middle of it. The Temple of Doom was not just an ancient temple, but an ancient ruin. Thick grey fog filled the air, making it impossible to see the inside of the Temple of Doom. Around the Temple of Doom, there were fragmented seals and killing formations that appeared and disappeared from time to time. They had been left behind since ancient times. A powerful sealing force sealed the entire Temple of Doom. At this moment, outside the Temple of Doom, the sounds of fighting, shouting, and roaring intertwined. Outside the Temple of Doom, human chosen ones from the ancient road, as well as cultivators from the other sects, engaged in fierce fighting. Blood scattered across the great earth, dyeing the earth red. This was an extremely cruel battle. "Kill! Kill all these despicable invaders," a serpent men warrior roared angrily. "Heh, what a joke. A mere Naga race is only fit to be a practice target. How dare they resist?" A human sky pride sneered. The sounds of killing soared into the sky, lingering in the ears. On the battlefield, there was someone who attracted a lot of attention. For example, Fan Tian, the Western sect's godchild, who was riding a white jade lion. Wherever he passed, the ferocious snake people race stopped fighting, as if they had been enlightened. On the other side, the holy prince of the Gulan sect, Sheng Hongi, punched out with his fist. His right arm was completely made of metal and had been refined into a supreme artifact. Every move he made could burst forth with boundless power. Of course, the ones who attracted the most attention were Mo Jinyu and Hu Qingqing. Those serpent men did not attack Mo Jinyu at all. Firstly, it was because the Holy Spirit race was too feared. Secondly, the Holy Spirit race's combat strength was invincible among their peers. Therefore, the serpent men did not even have the will to fight. The Holy Spirit Island's innate Holy Spirit. Fan Tian and Sheng Hongyi both paid attention to Mo Jinyu. Even though they were taboo existences, they were still afraid of the innate Holy Spirit. Seeing that no one dared to provoke Mo Jinyu, Hu Qingqing's delicate face also showed a sincere smile of joy. Her foresight was indeed correct. At this time, Fairy Yuan and the others still haven't arrived. They must have encountered some difficulties. It seems that even if they follow the Jun family's Son of God, it won't be smooth sailing. Just as Hu Qingqing was thinking this in her heart. Suddenly, the sky prides of the ancient road around the battlefield exclaimed, their faces filled with shock. In the distant sky, 4 figures descended, attracting many people's attention. They were Jun Xiaoyaro, Fairy Yuan, Yang Ruming, and Taiyin Jade Hair. It's the Jun family's Son of God. He really came. Some sky prides of the ancient road said with excitement. It's really them. Hu Qingqing's face suddenly turned ugly. What she thought had come true. He's the Jun family's Son of God. On the other side, Sheng Hongyi of the ancient orchid sect had a sharp look in his eyes. He has sinful karma entwined around his body. He has killed a Buddhist. Fan Tian of the Western Paradise sect frowned slightly. Beside Hu Qingqing, Mo Jinyu also looked over with a cold glint in her eyes. It was this man who had looked down on him and killed his follower. Jun Xiaoyaro and the others attracted the attention of everyone in almost an instant. In the blink of an eye, a large number of serpent men warriors rushed toward Jun Xiaoyaro and the others. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't care. He waved his hand, and ripples of magic power surged. Bang! 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 The serpent men warriors who rushed up instantly exploded into clouds of blood mist. Jun Xiaoyaro looked at the Temple of Doom in the distance. There was a sealing force outside the temple, so he couldn't enter yet. Outside the Temple of Doom, the ground was dyed red with blood. With Jun Xiaoyao's keen divine will, he could sense that there seemed to be faint fluctuations of an array under the ground. I see. Jun Xiaoyaro suddenly understood. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. The serpent men had a good plan. But he didn't care. Jun Xiaoyaro came here for the Temple of Doom. If the temple couldn't be opened, he couldn't get the opportunity inside. Jun Xiaoyao, you really dare to show up? A cold voice sounded from Mo Jinyu's mouth. His figure was slender, his posture vigorous, and his hair was sparkling and translucent. His body was like flesh and jade, with many runes flowing and emitting an eternal light. It was like a supreme treasure. Around him, 9 vortexes vaguely appeared, absorbing the essence of heaven and earth and constantly enhancing his strength. You are the 9-hold rock spirit of the sacred spirit island. Not bad. Jun Xiaoyaro glanced at Mo Jinyu. He didn't call Mo Jinyu by name, but called him 9-hold rock spirit. It was obvious that he was treating him as a rare divine material, not a living being. How dare you? Mo Jinyu's face darkened. No one had ever dared to treat a living being of the sacred spirit race as a material. Because doing so would attract the attention of the entire sacred spirit race. No race was willing to be used as a tool. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, did not shy away from the topic. Jun Xiaoyao, you are indeed as arrogant and overbearing as the rumors say, Sheng Hongyi of the Gulan sect sneered. He is. Jun Xiaoyaro said. Sheng Hongyi, the son of the Hong sect of the Gulan sect, Fairy Yuan whispered. Jun Xiaoyaro nodded. He also knew that the Gulan sect was an extremely ancient force. It was divided into heaven, earth, black, yellow, and the 8 sects of the universe. The sect that was destroyed in the Huangtian mystic realm was actually the barren sect of the 8 sects. The son of the Gulan sect was also the son of the barren sect, Sheng Hongyi. And the man in red was the son of the Hong sect, Sheng Hongyi. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't like the Gulan sect either. There was only coldness in his heart. He didn't forget that during the Battle of the Immortals in the Huangtian mystic realm, there were 3 top immortal forces from other mystic realms. One of them was the Gulan sect. That must be Fan Tian of the Western sect. Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes fell on the young monk riding on the jade white lion. Among the people present, the only ones that he cared about were the 9-hold rock spirit, Sheng Hongyi, and Fan Tian. However, for some reason, Zhun Xiaoyao's sharp consciousness could vaguely sense it. It was as if there was a cold gaze spying on him in the dark. Zhun Xiaoyao, just in time. Let me end your legend of being invincible among the younger generation. Mo Jinyu was about to make a move. Her aura surged like a vast ocean. All kinds of runes imprinted in the void. It was enough to show the peerless talent of this clan. Me too. Sheng Hongyi of the Gulan sect was about to make a move. However, at that moment, a cold voice sounded from the sky. Fighting among yourselves when you are on the verge of death. How sad. This voice was incomparably vast. It was like a shocking voice that shook the heavens and the earth. This aura. It's the Supreme Saint Plane, some of the geniuses exclaimed. Chapter 629. 3 figures appeared in the void. 2 men and 1 woman. Their upper bodies were human and their lower bodies were snake tails. What shocked everyone was their strength. They were all in the Great Saint stage. These 3 Great Saint stage serpent men were 3 of the 4 great generals of the serpent men tribe. They were the Thunder Snake General, the Green Snake General, and the Nether Snake General. Including the Flame Snake General, who had been killed by Zhun Xiaoyao. The 4 of them were the strongest of the serpent men tribe, second only to Queen Medusa. Why are the great saints of the serpent men tribe here? According to the rules of the ancient road, these powerhouses can't attack us. Many of the sky prides of the ancient road were frightened and uneasy. In the past, when they were training on the ancient underworld star, they were afraid of the enforcers because of the rules of the ancient road. These serpent men powerhouses couldn't attack them. But now, they had appeared. Those who came didn't have good intentions. Their appearance was obviously not just for show. Mo Jinyu, Sheng Hongyi, and the others also temporarily stopped attacking. At this time, the only woman among the 3 great generals, the Green Snake General, suddenly looked at Zhun Xiaoyao. The Green Snake General was wearing a slender, close-fitting green soft armor. Her lower body was a green snake tail. Her hair was loose, and her snow-white face was very beautiful. She looked at Zhun Xiaoyao and frowned. What does the death of the Flame Snake General have to do with you? They could vaguely sense a faint bloody aura around Zhun Xiaoyao. It was the aura left by the strongest of the Serpent Men tribe. And it just so happened that the Flame Snake General had died not long ago. I killed the Flame Snake General. What's wrong? Zhun Xiaoyao didn't hide anything and directly admitted it. What? The Zhun family's son of God killed the Flame Snake General, one of the 4 great generals of the Serpent Men tribe? How is that possible? Although the Flame Snake General hasn't reached the Great Saint stage, he's still a half-step Great Saint. No matter how strong the Zhun family's son of God is, there's no way he can defeat him. Maybe he's mistaken? Sounds of bewilderment could be heard from all around. How is it possible to kill a half-step Great Saint? Mo Jinyu sneered and shook her head. Even he could only escape from the hands of a late-stage Saint King. Killing a half-step Great Saint. He didn't even dare to think about it. This is too ridiculous. Hu Qingqing also felt that it was ridiculous. Even Great General Green Snake himself was puzzled. No matter how weak the Flame Snake General was, he wouldn't be killed by a young junior. Forget it, let's not bother about this. Anyway, they're all going to die today, General Thundersnake said with killing intent. Activate the formation. The Nether Snake General revealed a cruel smile. In the next instant, the 3 Naga generals attacked at the same time. The might of 3 great sages shook the heavens and earth. Then, an incomparably vast formation covered the entire continent. No one was able to escape from it. Myriad snake realm covering formation, the 3 great sages shouted coldly. Countless runes swirled as magical powers surged. In the void, countless runes gathered and turned into energy snakes. Each energy snake contained the power of a saint's strike. At this moment, There were hundreds of millions of energy snakes. The energy was enough to destroy the heavens and earth. It could even destroy a world. Oh no, the Naga tribe has long planned this. They used the Temple of Doom to bait us. Damn it, aren't they afraid of angering the enforcers? All the Sky Prides panicked. There was no way they could escape from such a large formation. Don't worry, the enforcers will definitely notice the commotion here. They will come and save us. Some of the Sky Prides comforted themselves. At this moment, a vast and boundless energy beam rose from the ancestral land of the Naga race and shot into the universe. Then, with the energy beam as the origin, runes spread out like an inverted bowl, covering the ancient heavenly underworld star and the surrounding starfields. All the energy waves couldn't be transmitted out. This starfield was completely sealed. Seeing this, all the Sky Prides of the ancient road were filled with despair. How foolish. Since they've already planned this, how could they let you have a chance to survive? Thundersnake General sneered. The Temple of Doom needs endless blood to open. Once the temple is opened, the Naga tribe will have hope of transforming, Nether Snake General said. That's right. The history of the Naga tribe being oppressed, robbed, and hunted will be a thing of the past. Green Snake General's tone was equally fanatical. This was their only hope. If they failed, the consequences would be the destruction of their entire tribe, because the enforcers of the ancient road would not let them go. Boom, boom, boom. Countless energy snakes gathered in the void. One by one, the Sky Prides of the ancient road and the cultivators of various forces exploded into a bloody mist. Each energy snake was comparable to a saint's attack. Even if they could block one or two, they couldn't block hundreds of them. Brahma of the Western Paradise raised his hand and took out a golden arms bowl. The golden arms bowl expanded in the wind and turned into a magical barrier to protect the people around him. Sheng Hongi also took out a secret artifact to temporarily fend off the might of the formation. As for Mo Jinyu and Hu Qingqing, they were not attacked. Because the Saint Spirit race and the Naga tribe had no grudges, the Naga tribe did not want to provoke such a powerful race for no reason. As for Jun Xiaoyao, he was the focus of attention. There were thousands of energy snakes around him, bombarding him. This was equivalent to thousands of saints attacking at the same time. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was still indifferent. He had long expected the Naga tribe to do this, but because he had a bargaining chip in his hand, he did not panic. Jun Xiaoyao raised his hand and used the Thunder Emperor's great mystique. It turned into endless lightning and shattered the energy snakes around him. Although the myriad snake realm formation was terrifying, it was a real threat to his life. Unless all of the formation's energy was directed at him alone. But that was obviously impossible, because there were other Sky Prides trying their best to resist. That person is quite capable, Thundersnake General said. I heard that he is a very powerful human Sky Pride on the ancient road. He has a strong background and an extraordinary origin, Green Snake General said. Who cares about his background? If today's plan succeeds, the Naga tribe will have nothing to fear. Nether Snake General did not care at all. As time passed, more and more Sky Prides and cultivators from the ancient road died. Blood dyed the ground red. Outside the Temple of Doom, the ancient and incomplete formation runes also began to melt. The door of the temple was finally opened. At the same time as the seal on the Temple of Doom was lifted. A boundless and terrifying aura erupted from the ancestral land of the Naga tribe in the distance. Purple light surged and formed a 10,000-foot-long purple snake in the sky. Amidst the glowing snakes, a curvaceous and alluring figure slowly approached with graceful steps. At the sight of this, all the Sky Prides within the array revealed looks of despair that they had never felt before. The strongest of the Naga tribe, a Saint Lord-level figure, Queen Medusa, had arrived. Chapter 630. Queen Medusa was a legendary Holy Lord powerhouse. She was very famous not only in the ancient heavenly underworld star zone but also in the surrounding star zones. Her fame was not limited to her strength. Her appearance was also impressive. However, no one dared to covet this cold beauty. That was because her aura was not something that ordinary men could suppress. It was also because of Queen Medusa that the entire Snake People tribe was able to survive. Otherwise, they would have long since become another destroyed race on the ancient road. In the past, there was no lack of tribes on the ancient road that were completely annihilated because of excessive killing. As for the Naga tribe, due to Queen Medusa's reputation, the prodigies of the ancient road would restrain themselves. At this moment, purple light was surging in the sky. The queen of the Naga tribe, Queen Medusa, had finally appeared. Queen Medusa was wearing a purple brocade dress. Her snow-white face was charming, her jade-like arms were tall, her red lips were bright, and her long and narrow eyes were beautiful and domineering. Her appearance was needless to say. She was like a cold and domineering elder sister. What made people gasp in amazement was her figure. Even Jun Xiaoyaro was slightly surprised by the turn of events. He finally understood why Bai Ling's figure was enough to make many adult women feel ashamed of their inferiority despite her young age. It was indeed the bonus of her tribe's talent. The purple brocade dress was unable to conceal Queen Medusa's voluptuous and exquisite figure. Her undulating curves were incomparably impressive, just like a ripe peach that was about to drip water. Beneath her round and perky buttocks was a violet-scaled snake tail that was dazzling and resplendent like violet gold. To be honest, if it were not for the fact that they were in a life-and-death situation, the male prodigies present would even want to sit down and quietly admire this mountain range. When Yang Ayu Meng saw this scene, her jade-like nose snorted lightly and said, "Heh." Men, fairy maiden Yuan also stole a glance at Jun Xiaoyao and found that Jun Xiaoyao's eyes did not have much of a reaction. At most, he was stunned by Queen Medusa's domineering figure for a moment, but he quickly came back to his senses. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Seeing Queen Medusa appear, the Snake People tribe present cried out loudly. Their eyes were filled with fanatical worship. The queen of their race was an existence that could not be blasphemed. They would only worship Queen Medusa with the attitude of worshipping God. If it weren't for Queen Medusa, their race would have been wiped out long ago. Today, all humans who come here will die a tragic death. Just like how my clansmen died tragically because of you. Queen Medusa spoke, her tone as cold as ice. At this moment, she was like a beautiful snake, emitting a biting cold and vicious killing intent. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This was what the prodigies of the ancient road owed the serpent men. What should we do? It's over. The Saint Master has arrived. What else can we do? We can only wait for death. At this moment, all the sky prides were in complete despair. Even Brahma, Sheng Hongi, and the others were frowning. Only Mo Jinyu and Hu Qingqing looked slightly calmer. The Naga clan would not attack the Holy Spirit clan. Despair gripped the hearts of all the chosen from the ancient road, and all the cultivators from the various factions. An untimely voice suddenly rang out. "So you're Queen Medusa. You do have some formidable means, but can you bear the consequences?" This voice carried the indifference and coldness of someone who was in a superior position. It was as if in front of the owner of this voice, even the famous and lofty Queen Medusa could only lower her noble head. Queen Medusa narrowed her eyes slightly and looked towards the source of the voice. It was an outrageously handsome young man in a white robe. On the battlefield that was covered in broken limbs and blood, his clothes were not stained by a single speck of dust. He was as calm as an immortal. It was as if the bloody battlefield had nothing to do with him. His expression was calm too. There was no despair in him at all. Queen Medusa's eyes flickered with surprise. This young master of the human race was a little different. "It's the son of God of the Jun clan. We won't die with him around." That's right, he has the powerful Jun clan behind him. No matter how strong Queen Medusa is, would she dare to kill the son of God of the Jun clan? The chosen cultivators became excited after hearing Jun Xiaoyao's words. It was as if they had found their last straw of hope. Jun Xiaoyaro was their savior. Only Jun Xiaoyaro had the confidence to confront Queen Medusa. "Senior son of God, please save us. Please avenge us. The son of God of the Jun clan is renowned across the ancient road. Why would he be afraid of the Naga clan? Even the beautiful Queen Medusa is only fit to be a bed-warming maid for the divine child of the Jun family. The chosen cultivators were either begging for help or fawning over Jun Xiaoyao. She even went so far as to say that Queen Medusa was only fit to be Jun Xiaoyao's bed-warming maid. Sheng Hongyi's expression darkened upon seeing this. Did Jun Xiaoyao already have such a great reputation in the Emperor Road? Everyone believed that he could lead them out of the death trap. Mo Jinyu's expression darkened too. Jun Xiaoyao had even stolen his limelight. How dare you? How dare you? The three generals of the Naga clan snapped coldly after hearing the words of the chosen cultivators. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. How could the high and mighty queen of their clan, who could not be profaned, only be fit to warm the bed of that brat? It was an insult and disrespect to the Naga clan. Queen Medusa's gorgeous face darkened too. She raised her hand and pressed it gently. The chosen cultivators who had spoken too much immediately exploded and died. The surroundings instantly fell silent. The chosen cultivators were trembling as they gathered around Jun Xiaoyao. Human, do you know what you're saying? Queen Medusa said coldly. Jun Xiaoyao stared at Queen Medusa and scanned her voluptuous Linglong's body. Queen Medusa's eyes flickered coldly. No one had ever dared to look at her so boldly. Of course I know what I'm talking about. Today, if I shed even a drop of blood, not only the Naga clan of the ancient heavenly underworld star, I'll eliminate every single one of them in the 9 heavens immortal realm. I'll break the path of reincarnation for the Naga clan. I'll eliminate every single one of you, and you'll never be reincarnated. Jun Xiaoyao flung his sleeves. His cold words swept across the place like a gust of cold wind. Everyone was stunned. Jun Xiaoyao's words were absolutely imperious. He was going to wipe out the entire clan and sever their bloodline. Even the path of reincarnation was going to collapse. If someone else were to say it, it would sound like they were bragging. However, if Jun Xiaoyao was the one who said it, everyone would not think it was a big deal. The reason being that the Jun clan did have the strength to do so. Besides, the Jun clan was famous for being protective of their own. If Jun Xiaoyao were to die because of such a scheme, the Naga clan would not stand a chance against the wrath of the Jun clan. This was the greatest deterrence brought about by a powerful background. Chapter 631. Jun Xiaoyao was not the kind of idiot who would not make use of his background. Under the circumstances, it was not a big deal to use the Jun clan's name. Besides, Jun Xiaoyao had another plan in mind. Everything was under his control. So what if she was Queen Medusa? She was just a pretty toy in his eyes. Any supreme elder of the Emperor clan could easily kill Queen Medusa 10,000 times over. It was quite ridiculous for someone of her level to act like a queen in front of him. You! Queen Medusa's hair drifted wildly as her terrifying aura of a sacred ruler burst out, stirring the heavens and earth. As the boundless pressure came crashing down, some of the sky prides were directly pressed to the ground, their bones shattering. The aura of a sacred ruler was absolutely terrifying. Jun Xiaoyao remained standing calmly, ignoring the pressure as if it were nothing. Queen Medusa's eyes glittered. Even she could not see through the young man in front of her. Queen Medusa did not like the feeling. She raised her fair and tender hand, intending to strike Jun Xiaoyao and kill him once and for all. The aura of a sacred ruler went without saying. It felt like the sky was about to collapse as she slammed her hand down. Meanwhile, an elder of the Naga tribe who was in charge of gathering information blurted out in a panic, "Your Majesty, you can't." "What is it?" Queen Medusa frowned. She really had the urge to slap the disrespectful kid to death. "Your Majesty, you can't kill him. If you do, the Naga tribe will be wiped out." The elder of the Naga tribe who was in charge of gathering information had heard a lot of news. It included the news about Jun Xiaoyao. Following that, this elder informed Queen Medusa of some of the information that he had obtained. After hearing this, even Queen Medusa, who had a cold and domineering personality, revealed a surprised expression. The legendary son of God of the Jun clan of the Desolation era. The strongest cultivator among the younger generation. He had founded the Emperor clan, an immortal faction. Any supreme elder of the Emperor clan could easily wipe out the Naga tribe 1,000 times over. He even fought against the heavens, shocking the entire 9 heavens immortal realm. Every single one of these events could be considered legendary. Queen Medusa did not expect that all of this was done by this young man in his 20s. Even she was shocked by the scene before her. If such a peerless figure died on the heavenly underworld ancient star, even with the concealment of the array, the Jun family was still capable of calculating the cause and effect. At that time, even if the Naga tribe obtained the opportunity in the Temple of Doom, they would still be able to transform. However, it was still impossible to withstand the wrath of the Jun family. Jun Xiaoyaro was really an untouchable hedgehog. Thinking of this, Queen Medusa's gaze changed. "Why aren't you attacking?" Jun Xiaoyaro smiled casually. He finally understood why the villains in those novels liked to use their power to oppress others. Because it was really quite satisfying. After thinking for a while, Queen Medusa stared coldly at Jun Xiaoyaro and said, "You can live, but you have to wait until my race's plan is completed before I can let you go." Queen Medusa took a step back. She could not bear the price of killing Jun Xiaoyaro. However, she could not let Jun Xiaoyaro go now, because she was afraid that he would report to the enforcers of the human race. "But what if I want to enter the Temple of Doom?" Jun Xiaoyaro smiled faintly. "Don't push your luck." Queen Medusa raised her eyebrows. She had already taken a step back, but Jun Xiaoyaro still wanted to enter the Temple of Doom. This was simply taking advantage of the situation for granted. "How about this? How about we make a bet?" Jun Xiaoyaro continued to suggest. "What bet?" Queen Medusa frowned and asked. She did not dare to underestimate Jun Xiaoyaro anymore. Who knew what he was up to? Jun Xiaoyaro stretched out 3 fingers and said, "3 moves. If this son of God can take 3 moves from you, you will let me enter the Temple of Doom." As soon as he said this, the whole place fell silent. Even Queen Medusa's charming face showed a hint of astonishment. "Do you know what you are saying?" Queen Medusa couldn't help but ask. She was a Holy Lord level powerhouse. Jun Xiaoyaro was only at the sage great perfection. In the sage realm, the difference of one realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Not to mention the difference of 3 realms between Jun Xiaoyaro and her. This was no longer a gap that could be made up with any method. It was simply a complete defeat without any suspense. Queen Medusa even thought that Jun Xiaoyaro was deliberately trying to trick her and drag the entire Naga tribe down with him. On the other side, Mo Jinyu, Sheng Hongyi, and the others could not help but sneer. It was because in their eyes, Jun Xiaoyao's behavior was no different from courting death. Challenging a sage king might be possible. Even if he faced a great sage, he might barely have a chance to escape. But facing a holy lord, there was absolutely no suspense. What is he trying to do? Brahma of the Western sect was also thinking. "Lord Son of God, please don't do this." "Yes, Son of God, please reconsider." Many of the surrounding geniuses also changed their expressions and tried their best to dissuade him. They were not thinking about Jun Xiaoyao's safety. But if Jun Xiaoyaro died, they would die without a doubt. Although the expressions of Fairy Yuan, Yang Rumeng, and the others changed slightly, they did not say anything. They had witnessed Jun Xiaoyaro killing a half-step great sage under the starry sky with their own eyes. As far as they were concerned, Jun Xiaoyaro was an eternal god. He definitely had his own confidence in doing things and would not act recklessly. "What, you don't dare to attack a sage?" Jun Xiaoyaro said indifferently. "You are setting a trap for me. If anything happens to you, the entire Naga tribe will be buried with you." Queen Medusa was a little cautious. "Then how about this? One more. If she can take 3 moves from you, how about warming the bed for this son of God?" Jun Xiaoyaro still said with a faint smile. Everyone was stunned. When the geniuses heard this, they were also stunned, and their expressions were stupefied. They were just flattering Jun Xiaoyao, but he actually dared to say that. Presumptuous. All the Naga tribe were angry, and their eyes were burning with anger. Queen Medusa was an existence that could not be blasphemed in their heart. But Jun Xiaoyao actually wanted to treat their queen as a bed-warming maid. How could they tolerate this? "Your Majesty, let me kill this kid." Lightning Snake General's eyes flashed with cold electricity. Even he did not dare to have any delusions about Queen Medusa, but this human kid was so blasphemous. Queen Medusa waved her hand and looked at Jun Xiaoyaro with a cold gaze. Are you deliberately provoking me to attack? When Jun Xiaoyaro heard this, he did not comment. That was indeed what he was thinking, but on the surface, he said, I am serious. Oh, but I seem to have forgotten that snakes are cold-blooded animals. They can't warm the bed. It seems that you are not even qualified to be my bed-warming maid. When everyone heard this, they were stunned. One of the geniuses was even more stunned. I heard that the son of God of the Jun family has a mouth as sharp as a knife. It is enough to infuriate a Buddha. I didn't believe it before, but I do now. Only Jun Xiaoyaro dared to tease and ridicule Queen Medusa like this. Queen Medusa's face was as cold as ice, and she stretched out a white and slender finger. There is no need for 3 moves. 1 will do. After saying that, Queen Medusa pointed at Jun Xiaoyaro. She wanted to teach him a lesson. Chapter 632. A sacred Lord-level powerhouse was incredibly powerful. Their every move could trigger the forces of heaven and earth, borrowing the power of heaven and earth. This power had far surpassed that of a sage king, and even a supreme sage. Queen Medusa pointed her finger downwards. Daoist patterns filled the void, and spiritual energy gathered to form a giant purple finger that was thousands of meters tall. With a single tap of his finger, even the towering mountains were about to collapse, and the bodies of saints were about to explode into a bloody mist. This is too scary. The surrounding sky prides quickly dispersed, keeping a distance from Jun Xiaoyaro. Even outlawed sky prides such as Mo Jinyu, Sheng Hongi, and Lord Brahma felt a fatal threat. They could not withstand this finger. All of you, back off. Jun Xiaoyaro said. Fairy Maiden Yuan, Yang Ruming, and Taiyin Jade Hair retreated. Jun Xiaoyaro never did anything he was not confident in, so they were not worried at all. The ground around Jun Xiaoyaro began to crack and collapse before the giant finger of purple light was even able to reach him. Jun Xiaoyao's white robe fluttered, and his sleeves danced in the wind. However, his expression was incredibly calm. He activated the power of the sacred body of the ancients and the immortal Deluo immortal body. The combination of the two gave Jun Xiaoyaro an almost indestructible physical body. He performed the Kuan Peng's grand divine power again and threw a punch. Runes filled the sky, and the shadow of a Kuan Peng appeared, bringing with it a supreme force that could shatter the heavens. He threw a punch at the giant purple finger. In the sky, Queen Medusa's cold and beautiful face was expressionless. She was not stupid. She did not try her best to kill Jun Xiaoyaro. Queen Medusa thought that it would be enough to severely injure Jun Xiaoyaro and teach him a lesson. Although it's just a casual finger, it's not something a mere sage can withstand. Queen Medusa's voice was cold. Boom. Jun Xiaoyao's fist light collided with the giant purple finger. Endless runes shot out, turning into waves that swept out. The surrounding ground crumbled. From this, one could see how powerful Queen Medusa's finger was. Is he dead? Sheng Hongi glanced over. He naturally hoped that Jun Xiaoyaro would fall in the hands of Queen Medusa. In this way, their Gulan holy church would lose a great land. This is the so-called mantis trying to stop a chariot, overestimating its capabilities. Mo Jinyu sneered. It seemed like there was no need for him to do anything. Smoke and dust filled the air as all of the chosen from the ancient road, as well as the snake men, looked over. This brat who dares to blaspheme the queen should be dead, right? General Thundersnake sneered. However, in the next moment, the sneer on his face froze and his snake eyes widened. Everyone present was stunned. They were flabbergasted and unable to believe what they were seeing. When the dust settled, a white-robed figure was still standing there calmly. There wasn't a single wrinkle on his white robe. Is this all the holy sovereigns have? Jun Xiaoyaro raised his head and looked at Queen Medusa in the sky. Queen Medusa was also slightly stunned. A hint of surprise appeared on her beautiful snow-white face. She had only casually pointed her finger. Although she had held back, it was enough to easily kill a holy sovereign. Even an outlawed sky pride like Jun Xiaoyaro should have been severely injured. However, Jun Xiaoyaro looked as if nothing had happened. His clothes were not even a little messy. This was beyond everyone's expectations. Again, Queen Medusa raised her eyebrows. This time, she was a little more serious. She had only used 10% of her strength in the previous attack. Now, Queen Medusa stretched out her jade-like hand and slapped down with 30% of her strength. 30% of a holy sovereign's strength was enough to easily injure a supreme sage and kill a holy sovereign. As for holy sovereigns, they were even more insignificant and could be easily destroyed. Now this is interesting. Jun Xiaoyao smiled faintly. He activated his sacred body of the ancients and immortal Deluo immortal body to the extreme. At the same time, the strength of the hell-crushing divine elephant was supported by the power of 100,000 divine elephants. He had also refined the Kuan Peng's great divine power and the Thunder Emperor's great divine power at the same time. In an instant, the space around Jun Xiaoyao was distorted. Divine light flashed, and billions of golden divine lights illuminated the world. The Kuan Peng and the Thunder Emperor's silhouettes attacked together with him. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao was like a supreme godly king. At least in terms of aura, he was not inferior to Queen Medusa at all. Boom! Queen Medusa's Maxim palm collided with Jun Xiaoyao's attack. This time, the ripples were more intense than before. A Maxim storm swept out and tore the surrounding space apart. It was as if two comets had collided. Rocks flew everywhere, and heaven and earth trembled. Boom! After the attack, Jun Xiaoyao took a few steps back. His body was buzzing and trembling. That was the terrifying power of a holy sovereign. It was going to tear his body apart. However, Jun Xiaoyao's body was emitting golden light. Immortal divine light flowed around him. This was a terrifying body that had the potential to become an emperor. Even 30% of a holy sovereign's power would be difficult to destroy. How can this be? Queen Medusa was really shocked this time. Her red lips were slightly open. She was very surprised. Even a supreme saint like General Thundersnake couldn't withstand 30% of her power. How could a mere saint realm cultivator withstand it? What she couldn't accept the most was that Jun Xiaoyao didn't have any obvious injuries on his body. He was still calm and collected. This kid, General Thundersnake, General Greensnake, and the others were also shocked. Impossible. The sacred body of the ancients is imprisoned by heaven and earth. It has 10 shackles. Even if he broke a few shackles, it's impossible for him to block the holy sovereign's attack. Mo Jinyu also took a deep breath. She was in disbelief. The Sacred Spirit Clan was a spirit formed from divine stones and immortal metals. They were born with an indestructible body. However, even if it was Mo Jinyu, with his current realm and the strength of his body, it was absolutely impossible for him to block Queen Medusa's attack. His body would directly shatter. There's only one last move left. Don't show mercy. Otherwise, as a queen, you'll really have to warm the bed for the Son of God. Jun Xiaoyao stood with his hands behind his back. There was a smile on his handsome face. This smile was quite glaring in Queen Medusa's eyes. If that's the case, then I'll fulfill your wish, Queen Medusa said coldly. Her purple snake tail swayed slightly. Her entire body tore through the void and instantly descended in front of Jun Xiaoyao. She wanted to personally take action and suppress this arrogant and loathsome brat. Seeing Queen Medusa personally make a move, Jun Xiaoyao's expression was calm. However, he was very vigilant. After all, she was a holy sovereign. The gap between their realms was too big. Jun Xiaoyao had to go all out. His body trembled slightly, and dragon chi surged out, condensing into a silver rainbow holy dragon armor that was suffused with rainbow colors. At the same time, the reverence of the 10,000 saints and immortal king descends to the 9 heavens were activated. Then, 6 streaks of divine energy appeared on the surface of Jun Xiaoyao's body and strengthened his strength. The power of the Bone of Supremacy was also activated by Jun Xiaoyao. It could be said that this time, Jun Xiaoyao really didn't hold back. He went all out. Boom, boom, boom. The two of them instantly exchanged blows. Every attack of Queen Medusa's contained the power of a holy sovereign. Even Jun Xiaoyao's physical body buzzed and trembled. Queen Medusa was surprised. Every time she attacked Jun Xiaoyao, she felt as if she was attacking an indestructible immortal metal. This kid's physical body. Queen Medusa was also in disbelief. She had never seen a monster like Jun Xiaoyao. She struck out with her palm again, trying to severely injure Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao took out the myriad chi cauldron. It was a powerful weapon. The myriad chi cauldron was rolling. The entire cauldron was like a huge star as it smashed toward Queen Medusa. Queen Medusa's jade-like palm hit the myriad chi cauldron, making a clang. She only felt a terrifying and boundless power crushing toward her, causing her to take a few steps back. At this time, Jun Xiaoyao used the speed of the Kuan Peng and instantly rushed behind Queen Medusa. He immediately made a move. He grabbed Queen Medusa's slender neck with one hand and her slim waist with the other. The sacred body of the ancients and the power of 100,000 divine elephants all exploded at this moment. Queen Medusa only felt as if her body was being ravaged and crushed by a giant steel beast. That divine power could simply shatter an ancient mountain. Just as Queen Medusa was about to completely unleash the power of a holy sovereign to shake off Jun Xiaoyao, Jun Xiaoyao suddenly moved his mouth close to Queen Medusa's ear and said with a sneer, "Don't you want to know where your daughter Bai Ling is?" As soon as he finished speaking, Queen Medusa's delicate body instantly stiffened. She even forgot to break free from Jun Xiaoyao. Her full and alluring body was tightly pressed against Jun Xiaoyao, and she was tightly restrained by him. Chapter 633. You know where Bai Ling is? Did you kidnap her? Queen Medusa gritted her teeth. Her beautiful eyes were filled with extreme coldness. If Jun Xiaoyao was really the one who took her away, she would make sure Jun Xiaoyao knew what it meant to be worse than death, even if it meant risking universal condemnation. I, the Son of God, would never resort to such means. Don't worry, she's fine, Jun Xiaoyao said. His breath landed on Queen Medusa's sparkling earlobe, giving her a tingling sensation. Queen Medusa looked at him strangely. As the queen of the Naga tribe, she was worshipped by everyone. No one of the opposite sex could get so close to her. At this moment, Queen Medusa realized that her voluptuous Linglong's body was tightly held by Jun Xiaoyao. Queen Medusa's cold and elegant face revealed a trace of shame and anger. Jun Xiaoyao didn't deliberately want to take advantage of Queen Medusa. He didn't need to. In battle, Jun Xiaoyao never differentiated between men and women. Even if it was a woman's chest, he would mercilessly punch it. However, one had to admit that only Queen Medusa could have such a delicate and voluptuous body. At this moment, everyone present, whether it was the prodigies of the ancient road or the Naga tribe, was stunned. Although they were in the middle of a battle, why did this scene feel a little strange? It made one's imagination run wild. Are all men like this? Yang Rumeng pursed her lips. She subconsciously looked down at her own figure. It wasn't bad either. Although she was not as mature as Queen Medusa, she was not as mature. Fairy Maiden Yuan also bit her lips slightly. She didn't say anything, but she felt a little uncomfortable. On the Naga tribe's side, the Lightning Snake General and the others were even more shocked. The supreme queen of the snake people race, who could not be profaned, was actually being defiled by a human man. Queen Medusa also came back to her senses when she noticed the commotion around her. She was just a little absent-minded when she heard about Bai Ling. Can you release him now? Queen Medusa asked coldly. Of course. We can talk about anything. This son of God doesn't want to completely destroy the Naga race. That's too cruel and goes against the harmony of the heavens. Jun Xiaoyao let go of Queen Medusa. He knew that Bai Ling was the best bargaining chip. However, if someone who knew Jun Xiaoyao well heard this, they would definitely ridicule him. Jun Xiaoyao had annihilated many major forces and races, after all. After the two of them separated, the atmosphere calmed down for the time being. Queen Medusa's face was still flushed red from her embarrassment and anger, adding a touch of femininity to her cold and elegant face. However, the way she looked at Jun Xiaoyao was still cold. Brat, how dare you blaspheme Her Majesty the Queen? Die. General Thundersnake was about to attack. Stop. Queen Medusa coldly berated. The Thunder Snake General's body stiffened. He was a little stunned and his face was filled with resentment. Queen Medusa was actually berating her general for a foreign brat who had just profaned her. "Where's Bai Ling?" Queen Medusa asked. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled faintly. A green shadow flashed across his chest. It was a small green snake. With a flash, it transformed into a beautiful girl around 13 or 14 years old. It was Bai Ling mother. Seeing Queen Medusa, Bai Ling revealed a look of extreme joy and rushed over. When Jun Xiaoyaro saw this, he didn't stop her. He knew that with Bai Ling around, Queen Medusa wouldn't attack him. Bai Ling also wouldn't allow Queen Medusa to harm him. This sudden turn of events caused many people to be stunned. They did not expect the situation to take such a turn. However, when they thought about how Jun Xiaoyaro had really blocked 3 of Queen Medusa's attacks, everyone was amazed. Mo Jinyu, Sheng Hongyi, and the others were even more incredulous. "Bai Ling, are you alright?" Queen Medusa rubbed Bai Ling's head. Her originally cold and domineering pretty red phoenix eyes had a warm feeling surging up at this moment. "Bai Ling is fine. It's all thanks to you that I was able to see my mother safely." Bai Ling smiled happily. After that, she briefly told Queen Medusa about what had happened. When she heard that Jun Xiaoyaro didn't hurt Bai Ling after winning the bid, she heard that he even took care of her. When Queen Medusa looked at Jun Xiaoyaro, the coldness in her eyes lessened. "Although you're very annoying, I still have to thank you for saving Bai Ling," Queen Medusa said coldly. Jun Xiaoyaro said, "Queen Medusa, what I want isn't just a word of thanks. Did I win the battle of 3 moves just now?" Hearing this, Queen Medusa's face revealed a hint of hesitation. "Do you really want me to be your bed-warming maid?" Jun Xiaoyaro was also slightly stunned. Shouldn't the main point be that he wanted to enter the Temple of Doom? That's secondary. Also, we might be able to discuss some things that might be helpful to the Snake People tribe, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Queen Medusa thought for a moment and handed Bai Ling over to General Green Snake. Then, she waved her hand. The magical power runes around them intertwined, forming an isolated space. Only Queen Medusa and Jun Xiaoyaro were inside. What's going on? Is the son of God of the Jun family going to persuade Queen Medusa? What persuasion? He should be sleeping with her, right? TSK, if it were me, I wouldn't dare to be alone with that femme fatale. All the geniuses outside were amazed. Her Majesty wants us to temporarily stop the 1,000-snake realm covering formation and discuss it later, General Green Snake said. How can this be? That brat can actually make Her Majesty change her mind. General Lightning Snake was extremely dissatisfied. There was also a hint of jealousy. Because in the Snake People tribe, apart from Queen Medusa, his cultivation was the highest. In the future, if Queen Medusa wanted to reproduce, the best candidate would be him. As for Bai Ling, although she was Queen Medusa's daughter, she wasn't actually her mother. Although General Lightning Snake didn't dare to blaspheme Queen Medusa, he vaguely had such thoughts in his heart. Now that he saw Queen Medusa and another human man like this, he was naturally unhappy. At this moment, in the isolated space, Queen Medusa's gaze was cold as she looked at Jun Xiaoyaro and said, "If you have something to say, say it. My patience is limited." Jun Xiaoyaro clasped his hands behind his back and said, "You want the opportunity in the Temple of Doom because you want the entire Snake People tribe to escape from their current miserable situation. But have you ever thought about what if the Temple of Doom doesn't have the opportunity to transform your Snake People tribe? When the executors of the ancient road arrive, your Snake People tribe will be finished." Jun Xiaoyao's words caused Queen Medusa's expression to turn serious. Indeed. The executors of the ancient road had cultivation bases above the supremacy level. It wouldn't be too difficult to wipe out the Snake People tribe. Queen Medusa could be considered to have staked everything on this one throw, betting everything on the Temple of Doom. If she lost, the Snake People tribe would naturally be wiped out. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled and said, "If this son of God gave you a chance to let the Snake People tribe live a 100% stable life, and also obtain abundant resources, would you be willing?" "What? You can do it?" Queen Medusa was shocked. Wasn't this what she dreamed of? To let the Snake People tribe develop steadily, and not be bullied and hunted every day like they were now? It's very simple. Submit to me. Jun Xiaoyaro flicked his sleeve and looked down at Queen Medusa condescendingly. Chapter 634. In fact, Jun Xiaoyaro had no plans to subdue the Naga tribe from the beginning. To him, the Naga tribe was nothing more than an insignificant tribe. Their survival had nothing to do with him. Even if the Naga tribe was exterminated, Jun Xiaoyaro wouldn't feel anything. He wouldn't even bat an eyelid. However, after learning about Bai Ling's bloodline, Jun Xiaoyaro had a vague feeling. The Naga tribe must have some secrets. And those secrets were in the Temple of Doom. If the Naga tribe really had other origins, then the Naga tribe was worth nurturing. Joining the monarch's court was a good choice. You want to enslave the Naga tribe? Queen Medusa raised her eyebrows. If anyone else dared to say such words in front of her, Queen Medusa would have already slapped them. It's submission, not enslavement, Jun Xiaoyaro corrected. It's still your orders, Queen Medusa said coldly. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head slightly. Queen Medusa, you're not that naive, are you? You should know that there's no such thing as absolute freedom in this world. The entire world is like a pyramid. Each level oppresses the next, and I, the Son of God, stand at the top of the pyramid. Jun Xiaoyao's hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes shone with a bright light of confidence. He was born to be noble and lofty. That aura of a dragon and phoenix among men that had been in a high position for a long time even caused Queen Medusa to feel a little uncomfortable. She felt that in front of Jun Xiaoyaro, even a holy lord like her was inferior. Do you believe that the executors of the ancient road, who can easily destroy your Naga tribe, have to bow their heads in front of me, the Son of God? I, the Son of God, am the ruler of the monarch's court. With a casual word, I can destroy your Naga tribe 10,000 times over. Therefore, this is the Son of God's pity for your Naga tribe. Jun Xiaoyao's words caused Queen Medusa's face to turn pale. She was the high and mighty queen of the Naga tribe. However, in front of Jun Xiaoyaro, she was just a plaything that was slightly more beautiful and had a slightly better figure. Queen Medusa took a deep breath, her chest heaving up and down. She stared at Jun Xiaoyaro with her long, narrow, phoenix-like eyes. Are you sure that we won't be wiped out by the executors of the ancient road? Of course, if this Son of God can't stop it, then no one can, Jun Xiaoyaro said calmly. Queen Medusa was a little conflicted. It was her first time meeting someone like Jun Xiaoyaro. Domineering and awe-inspiring, his power overflowed to the heavens. However, he was meticulous, good at scheming, and had extraordinary talent. Even if such a person wasn't a hero in the future, he would still be a formidable person. Add to that Jun Xiaoyao's unshakable background, and Queen Medusa was convinced that the Naga tribe could follow Jun Xiaoyaro to the light of day. She sighed and said, if you want us to surrender, we can. However, the secrets of the Temple of Doom are also very important to us. Don't worry about that, Jun Xiaoyaro said. We can investigate together. Very well, Queen Medusa said with a sigh. We agree. So what if they didn't agree? If the secrets in the Temple of Doom weren't enough to transform the entire Naga tribe, then the slaughter here would definitely incur the wrath of the executors of the ancient road. When that happened, the Naga tribe would be wiped out. Queen Medusa had been forced into a dead end when she wanted to gamble. But now, Jun Xiaoyaro had given her a better option. She wasn't stupid. A wise man submits to circumstances. Jun Xiaoyaro nodded. Very well, Queen Medusa said. Then we can explore the Temple of Doom together. What should you call me? Jun Xiaoyaro asked coolly. If she was willing to acknowledge allegiance to him, then she had to understand the importance of seniority. Queen Medusa bit her lip and looked at Jun Xiaoyaro. After a long time, she finally spoke in a somewhat unfamiliar and dry tone. Young master, good, Jun Xiaoyaro said. By the way, I'm very curious about Bai Ling's bloodline. Back then, Bai Ling said that Queen Medusa was the only one who gave birth to her. Jun Xiaoyaro felt that something was off. Based on what he had seen, Queen Medusa didn't have a partner. Queen Medusa replied, a long time ago, there was a riot at the Temple of Doom, during which a drop of ancient blood was spat out. I used the Naga tribe's blood origin life creation magic to refine that drop of ancient blood and give birth to an embryo. That's how Bai Ling came to be. What? Jun Xiaoyaro said. Bai Ling was born from a drop of ancient blood in the Temple of Doom? This was completely out of his expectations. And the Naga tribe's blood origin life creation magic could give birth to life from a drop of ancient blood. This reminded Jun Xiaoyaro of a legend in Huaxia. That god seemed to have a human head and a snake's body, right? The blood origin life creation magic is very demanding, and the success rate is too low. Maybe it was because of that drop of ancient blood that it succeeded in the end, Queen Medusa explained. Jun Xiaoyaro nodded. It seemed that the answer to the mystery should be in the Temple of Doom. Well, since it's settled, let's go, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Queen Medusa waved her hand and dispersed the isolated space. They appeared in front of everyone again. Hey, it's settled. Everyone's gazes shifted over. Their expressions froze at the same time. Because Queen Medusa was standing behind Jun Xiaoyaro. She looked like a maid. Damn, he really turned Queen Medusa into a bed-warming maid. Amazing, the son of God of the Jun family is really amazing. A dignified Holy Lord-level powerhouse, Queen Medusa, who was famous for her beauty and ferocity, had actually been subdued. Your Majesty, you. Green Snake General and the others were also in disbelief. Queen Medusa waved her hand and said, "Remove the array. We'll talk about the details later." Seeing this scene, the geniuses and cultivators of the ancient road all showed the joy of surviving a disaster. They were finally going to survive. Thank you, Son of God, for saving our lives. Everyone bowed to Jun Xiaoyaro with sincerity. You don't have to be so polite. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled slightly. Although these people were like ants in his eyes, he just saved them in passing. But why not use the reputation he got for free? It was just enough to make up for his image. Next, the Naga tribe will explore the Temple of Doom. Except for young Master Jun and the others, everyone else can get lost, Queen Medusa said coldly. Hearing this, the geniuses didn't show any disappointment. It was already good enough that they came back alive. Amitabha, it seems this little monk is not fated to enter this temple. Brahma Heaven chanted a Buddhist mantra, feeling a little helpless. Mo Jinyu and Sheng Hongyi's expressions didn't look too good. Hu Qingqing was even more anxious. Beside Mo Jinyu, she said, "Young Master Mo, this, Fairy Yuan could enter the Temple of Doom with Jun Xiaoyao, but she couldn't." What was going on? Queen Medusa, I'm Mo Jinyu of the Holy Spirit Island. I also want to enter the Temple of Doom, Mo Jinyu said. However, before Queen Medusa could say anything, Jun Xiaoyao opened his mouth and spoke. If you didn't speak, I would have forgotten about you. If you want to enter the Temple of Doom, sure, but you'll have to get through me first. Jun Xiaoyao said indifferently. Mo Jinyu's expression instantly turned ugly. Chapter 635. If Jun Xiaoyao dared to provoke her like this before, Mo Jinyu would have attacked him. However, Jun Xiaoyao had blocked 3 of Queen Medusa's attacks. Everyone knew that Jun Xiaoyao was probably the one who killed the half-step great saint-level fiery snake general. A sage killing a half-step great sage. No one would believe it if they heard about it. However, Jun Xiaoyao did it. It was obvious how terrifying Jun Xiaoyao's true strength was. Even Mo Jinyu, who was known to be invincible among her peers and a natural divine spirit, was afraid of him. TSK, the natural divine spirit Mo Jinyu is scared? How can she not be scared? If it were her, would she be able to withstand 3 of the sacred leader's attacks? Not to mention the sacred leader, she might not even be able to withstand 3 of the half-step great sage's attacks. The son of God of the Jun family killed a half-step great sage. He's so powerful. Perhaps it was because Jun Xiaoyao had saved everyone, but the crowd was more biased toward Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao, don't you go too far. Mo Jinyu's hair fluttered in the wind, and her face was filled with anger. So what if I, the son of God, am bullying you? Not only you, Sheng Hongyi, Fan Tian, the 3 of you can come at me together. I, the son of God, will take all of you. Jun Xiaoyao flung his sleeves in a domineering manner. He was going to fight 3 outlawed sky prides alone. Outlawed sky prides were not cabbages that could be found everywhere. Each of them had a monstrous talent. 3 outlawed sky prides together were enough to dominate an entire ancient path. Sheng Hongyi's expression was grim. To be honest, he was a little scared. Even Sheng Hongyi himself could not believe it. He was the holy son of the Gulan sect's Hong sect. It was always others who were afraid of him, not him. This was the first time he felt this way. It could only be said that Jun Xiaoyaro was too oppressive. Amitabha, I have no fate with the Temple of Doom, so I won't interfere. Benefactor Jun, farewell. Brahma chanted a Buddhist proclamation and spurred the jade white lion, and actually fled like a wisp of smoke. This caused the group of people to be extremely astonished. Don't be fooled by Brahma's kind and amiable appearance. When he was truly enraged, he was just like the Wisdom King, causing others to tremble in fear. Yet now, they were retreating without a fight. Jun Xiaoyaro glanced at them and thought, it seems that not all Buddhist prodigies are as stupid as Fahai and Jade Fozi. You guys want to run too? Jun Xiaoyao's lips curled into a mocking smile. Mo Jinyu's expression turned even colder. Jun Xiaoyao's words were obviously forcing him to fight. If Mo Jinyu ran away now, his image would be ruined. Even the Holy Spirit clan, who was invincible among their peers, would be tainted. This was something Mo Jinyu absolutely could not accept. Sheng Hongyi would not be able to escape either. If the other saints of the Gulan sect saw him, they would not even have the courage to fight. Perhaps his position as the son of saint would be impeached and replaced by someone else. Jun Xiaoyao, don't be so arrogant. The Holy Spirit clan is blessed by the heavens and invincible among our peers. Why would we be afraid of you? After Mo Jinyu finished speaking, he let out a clear whistle and directly attacked. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were also filled with a hint of interest. He was very curious about whether his sacred body of the ancients or the Holy Spirit clan's indestructible treasured body was stronger. Whoosh! The two figures collided fiercely like comets hitting the earth. Boom! It was just a punch, but Mo Jinyu was knocked back several miles. A muffled groan came from his chest, and his arms trembled violently. What? He's at a disadvantage after one move? Seeing Mo Jinyu being knocked back several miles with one move, everyone rubbed their eyes, thinking that their eyes were playing tricks on them. That was the invincible Holy Spirit clan, who was blessed by the heavens and nurtured by the heavens and earth, but he was at a disadvantage after one move. Hu Qingqing's charming face was also stunned. She knew that it would be very difficult for Mo Jinyu to defeat Jun Xiaoyao. But he should be able to resist. But now, it seemed that she had overestimated Mo Jinyu and underestimated Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao, you. Mo Jinyu's hair was disheveled, and his face was covered in dust. His expression was filled with shock and anger, but there was also a hint of fear. In just the initial exchange of blows, he felt that Jun Xiaoyao not only had an unparalleled physique, but his divine power was even more powerful. Mo Jinyu could not imagine how Jun Xiaoyao, a human, could cultivate his physical body to be stronger than the Holy Spirit clan, who had turned divine stones and immortal gold into spirits. And it was not just a little bit stronger. Demonic light of petrification. Mo Jinyu also used the Holy Spirit clan's innate magic. The grey light beam shot out, and everywhere it passed, the ground froze like rocks. All kinds of plants were also turned into stone sculptures. The grey light shone on Jun Xiaoyao's body at lightning speed. His body froze inch by inch, turning into a stone sculpture. It's the Holy Spirit clan's demonic petrification light. It's said that when it's fully mastered, the grey light can petrify all the creatures on the ancient planet. Many geniuses showed fear in their eyes. However, before Mo Jinyu could breathe a sigh of relief, the stone sculpture made a cracking sound, and cracks spread out, and then it directly collapsed. Jun Xiaoyao's figure was revealed, and he was not affected at all. The sacred body of the ancients could be immune to many strange energies. In addition, Jun Xiaoyao also had the ability to be immune to magical power. The demonic petrification light was also ineffective against him. Jun Xiaoyao punched out. It was the fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation, which was supported by the Kuan Peng's grand magic, the Thunder Emperor's grand magic, and other moves. The fist light surged, and the ground in front of it was torn apart. Mo Jinyu was also unwilling to wait for death, and he pushed his strength to the limit. Around him, 9 vortexes appeared, swallowing the essence of heaven and earth. This was the talent of the 9-holed rock spirit that was exclusive to him. Divine Fist of the Heavens. Mo Jinyu absorbed the essence of heaven and earth and turned it into a world-shaking punch, colliding with Jun Xiaoyao's fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, accompanied by a cracking sound, Mo Jinyu's fist was smashed open, and the blood of the Holy Spirit splattered out. Impossible, I'm an invincible Holy Spirit, and my physical body is unparalleled. Mo Jinyu couldn't believe it and roared. At this time, Jun Xiaoyao's fist mark was already imprinted on Mo Jinyu's body. Holy Spirit stone armor. Mo Jinyu let out a long roar, and pieces of grey stone armor appeared on the surface of his body. This was the stone skin that he shed when he transformed into a human, and he refined it into armor. Jun Xiaoyao's fist landed on the surface, causing a sound that sounded like a great bell to be heard. A wave of vibration power surged out, and once again, Mo Jinyu was sent flying. This innate Holy Spirit was in a sorry state in the hands of Jun Xiaoyao, and he didn't have the strength to fight back at all. At this moment, a rumbling sound rang out. Sheng Hongyi attacked at this time. He struck out with his metal-like right arm, and dazzling divine light shot out, and his fist intent soared into the sky. Jun Xiaoyao didn't care, and he countered with the Kuan Peng infinite divine fist. Clang, like the sound of a heavenly bell. Sheng Hongyi was also shocked, and he coughed up blood as he retreated. It's over. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were indifferent. He still had to explore the Temple of Doom, and he didn't have time to waste on these two. Jun Xiaoyao stood in the sky, and he raised his hands. His left hand formed the path of life, and his right hand rose with the aura of death. 2 wheels of life and death appeared from his hands, and they rotated in the heavens, creating life and death. Wheels of life and death. Jun Xiaoyao reached out with both hands, and attacked Mo Jinyu and Sheng Hongyi at the same time. Behind him, the phantom of the immortal king descending from the 9 heavens appeared, augmenting the power of his Dao arts and divine arts. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao was like the immortal king who controlled the life and death of all living beings. Even outlawed sky prides were as insignificant as ants in front of him. The life and death of all living beings was under his control. Chapter 636. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao's aura was too powerful. The silhouette of an immortal king appeared behind him. He pushed the wheel of life and death, crushing everything as if he could control the life and death of all living beings. Sheng Hongyi and Mo Jinyu did not even have the strength to fight back in the face of such an attack. They tried their best to use their martial arts and superpowers. They cultivated all kinds of terrifying superpowers that could kill a sage in an instant. However, all of this was nothing in front of Jun Xiaoyao's wheel of life and death. Whoosh! Their bodies were severely injured and began to collapse as if they were about to collapse. Jun Xiaoyao summoned the myriad chi cauldron and suppressed Mo Jinyu. He wanted to refine her into a resource for the myriad chi cauldron. Ah! Mo Jinyu screamed. She never thought that she, an innate saint spirit, would be used as a material one day. The myriad chi cauldron carried a mighty force that could suppress the heavens. Mo Jinyu's severely injured body could not resist at all and was immediately suppressed. The surging myriad chi instantly drowned Mo Jinyu. Every wisp of myriad chi could crush a mountain range of thousands of miles. Although Mo Jinyu's body was a 9-orifice divine stone, she could not withstand this power. Her body exploded in the myriad chi cauldron and turned into a resource to nourish the cauldron. Everyone present was dumbfounded. The outlawed sky prides of the sacred spirit tribe were defeated in such a way. It was unexpected. Jun Xiaoyao turned to look at Sheng Hongyi and said indifferently, "You're not even as good as the 9-orifice divine stone. You're worthless as a material." Jun Xiaoyao only had coldness toward the Gulan sect. During the Immortal War, the Gulan sect had crossed the immortal domain to intervene. Jun Xiaoyao was a vengeful person. He would kill anyone from the Gulan sect on sight. Jun Xiaoyao raised his hand. The power of law intertwined and formed a giant palm. Even the lines on the palm could be seen clearly. It was as if the hand of a divine king was pressing down. Sheng Hongyi screamed at the top of his lungs when he sensed that death was near. Jun Xiaoyao, don't be so arrogant. The 8 gates of the Gulan Church are not something that your Jun family can easily provoke. The saints of the other sects will also avenge me. As his voice fell, the palm of law came crashing down, smashing Sheng Hongyi into a bloody pulp. If the holy sons of the other sects dare to provoke us, they will only be courting death. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was indifferent. In the ancient Orchid religion, the higher the rank of the holy son, the stronger he was. For example, the holy prince of the ancient Orchid cult's heavenly gate, Sheng Tianyi, was extremely famous on the ancient road. He was even more famous than Sheng Hongyi. But to Jun Xiaoyao, it didn't matter. They could only be killed by him. Everyone gulped as they watched Jun Xiaoyao slaughter 2 outlawed sky prides in the blink of an eye. The Jun family's son of God's strength has far surpassed the average outlawed sky prides. I'm afraid only the outlawed sky prides of the outlawed sky prides can stand a chance against him. Someone said with lingering fear. Maybe the Jun family's son of God can really break through the entire ancient road. TSK, I really want to witness that scene with my own eyes. After all, Jun Xiaoyao had saved their lives. Therefore, these people were extremely respectful towards Jun Xiaoyao. Among the crowd, Hu Qingqing was completely stunned. Mo Jinyu, the ally that she had painstakingly recruited, died in Jun Xiaoyao's hands so easily. She was in a daze, as if her soul had left her body. Sensing Jun Xiaoyao's gaze on her, Hu Qingqing immediately knelt on the ground and cried as she begged for mercy, "Master Son of God, please forgive me. I'm willing to follow the Son of God and do anything for you." Who would have thought that the noble lady of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, one of the courtesans of the goddess Lane, Hu Qingqing, would kneel on the ground and beg for mercy, begging to stay by Jun Xiaoyao's side and do anything for him? However, before Jun Xiaoyao could say anything, Fairy Yuan twisted her slender waist and attacked. "You want to stay by my master's side? Do you think you're worthy?" Fairy Yuan attacked forcefully and attacked Hu Qingqing. "Fairy Yuan, Master Son of God hasn't said anything yet. Who gave you the right to attack?" Hu Qingqing shrieked. Boom. The 2 beauties began to fight. Jun Xiaoyao remained expressionless, but he was slightly surprised. Fairy Maiden Yuan's attack was decisive. What surprised him even more was that Fairy Yuan's strength was stronger than he had imagined. When the Luotian fleeting dance was performed, it made the heavenly Maiden Yuan look absolutely stunning. But in this beauty, there was an extreme murderous intent. In just a few dozen rounds, Hu Qingqing died in the hands of Fairy Yuan amidst a scream. Jun Xiaoyao looked at this scene with a deep gaze. Fairy Yuan looked back at Jun Xiaoyao and smiled charmingly. She winked at him playfully and said, "Young master, you won't blame me for killing Hu Qingqing, right? Get ready to enter the Temple of Doom." Jun Xiaoyao did not say much. In fact, he already knew some things in his heart. Everything was still under his control. At this point, the curtains were drawn for the time being. Next, all that was left was to explore the Temple of Doom. Queen Medusa glanced at Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao's cunning, scheming, ruthless methods, and unnatural talent were all things that mattered to him. All of this made Queen Medusa believe that she had not followed the wrong person. She even felt that it might not be long before Jun Xiaoyao's strength would far surpass hers. "Let's go in," Jun Xiaoyao said. Queen Medusa nodded slightly. Then Jun Xiaoyao, Fairy Yuan, Yang Ruming, and Taiyin Jade Hair followed. Queen Medusa, Thunder Snake General, Green Snake General, Nether Snake General, and others entered the Temple of Doom together. Originally, Queen Medusa was unwilling to let Bai Ling enter the Temple of Doom and take the risk. However, considering that Bai Ling was born from a drop of ancient blood in the Temple of Doom, Jun Xiaoyao still suggested that Bai Ling go in with them. Not long after they entered the Temple of Doom. In the void, 4 faint shadows swept into the temple. This subtle scene was not noticed by the Serpent Men warriors. The Temple of Doom was not just a temple, but a continuous stretch of ancient ruins. When Jun Xiaoyao and the others entered, they found that the place was filled with a grey fog. "Everyone, use your mana to isolate it," Jun Xiaoyao said. He seemed to have become the leader of the group. "Mph, why should we listen to the orders of this human brat?" Thunder Snake General muttered. All right, do as young Master Jun says. Queen Medusa waved her hand. Everyone used their magic power to isolate themselves from the grey fog. Jun Xiaoyaro was no stranger to this fog. This was because there was this kind of grey fog in the supreme treasure of Yuantian. This was related to the dark matter of the foreign realm. Could this place also be related to the dark matter of the foreign realm? Jun Xiaoyaro thought in his heart. The deeper they went into the ruins of the Temple of Doom, the more Queen Medusa and the others felt a kind of domain suppression. I can't use the strength of a divine lord. Queen Medusa frowned. This place was very strange, and it made her feel uneasy. Not only her, but Thunder Snake General and the others also couldn't use the strength of a supreme saint. Everyone's strength seemed to be suppressed to the saint realm. At this moment, there was a hissing sound in front of them. An ancient serpent with blood-red eyes tore at them. Jun Xiaoyaro used his fingers as a sword and cut off its head. He went forward to investigate, and he came to a realization. As expected, it's the same as the supreme treasure of Yuantian. If any creature is contaminated by this grey fog, their eyes will turn scarlet and they will fall into madness. What is the foreign realm's dark matter, and where does it come from? Why would this grey fog appear in the Temple of Doom? Could it be that there is something in it that has been contaminated by the dark matter? Jun Xiaoyaro thought about a lot of things, and there were also many mysteries.